Many know about slavery, but few discuss paper genocide. We did not all come from Africa, and most of us have Aboriginal roots that were stripped away due to reclassification and miseducation. As a native Black American and a member of the Muskogee Creek Nation, I understand the importance of tracing your lineage. If you want to learn how to trace your genealogy and apply for tribal citizenship, go to nativeblackancestry.com to schedule a consultation.
They don't want you to remember this. You not no slave, you indigenous. Fuck how they painted them Indians. You went to war with the French and the British, man. Quite frankly, you was kings, Merovingians. They took the women and men, made them prisoners. Raised up the children to worship their images. Set up a lab to the genes and they mixed them. And this shit get way deeper than your pigment.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let's get this party started. We are live on TikTok. We are live on YouTube. You know the drill. Yet another live call-in show. The prompt tonight is the same prompt we've been using for the last few days now. I think this prompt is going to be relevant for the foreseeable future. I really see no reason to change it, honestly. I see no reason at all to change it. Now, the prompt is as follows. Latinos and Africans. Latinos and Africans have the biggest identity crisis. Us Black Americans, we're indigenous to America. Prove me wrong. Call in. And guys, I don't even really have to wonder whether or not we're gonna have somebody call in. Every single time we do these broadcasts, we have dozens of foreigners that call in and try to dictate heritage to us. We have dozens and dozens of foreigners that try to tell us that they know where we come from and they know our families and they know our motherfucker, you don't know me and I don't know you. And the crazy thing is we don't give a damn about these foreigners, but they are all obsessed with us. I mean, make it make sense, guys. Make it make sense. We have Africans that call in from London and Europe, all over the world. I've had Africans call in from Canada, New Zealand. They be EBA, everywhere but Africa. We have these Latinos that try to call in and promote this mestizo myth of being half indigenous, half European. I mean, come on, y'all. Come on. We have to speak to the elephant in the room. And you can always count on me, above all else, to speak to the elephant in the room. Now, real quick, let me try to get my camera fixed a little bit. For TikTok, it's looking good. For YouTube, horizontal, it's looking good. But YouTube vertical, it's looking a little strange. I wonder if I can get this fixed real quick. We've already got a couple callers backstage on the TikTok side of things. We already have a couple callers. If anybody wants to call in on YouTube, let me put the StreamYard link in the chat right now for you. Go ahead and click the StreamYard link. It'll bring you right in. For the folks on TikTok, you should already know how to call in. Just go ahead and click request to join as guest. I'll bring you right up. I will be bringing people up in the order of appearance. Don't think that you're going to skip the line now. Don't think you're going to skip the line. I don't know what's going on with the vertical TikTok feed. It's just super zoomed in for some reason. Hold on, let me see. Does this help? I guess it does help a bit. Yeah. That does help a bit. We got to go about right there. All right. That's good. Naza, you've already got an invite to call in. You haven't called in. You still chatting shit in the chat. You are blocked. This is a live call-in show. I'm not going to let y'all troll in the chat. You have to call in and say it with your chest. If anybody has any general questions about genealogy, tribal citizenship, tribal benefits, how to trace your heritage, I am your resident expert, full-time genealogist, card-carrying member of the Muskogee Creek Nation. But you know what? I have a feeling that it's going to be like 70-30. I'm sure 30% of the callers tonight will be fellow Native Black Americans just looking to learn the steps to trace their heritage, maybe pick my brain about different historical events. But we know a good 70% It's going to be you Africans, you Latinos, you little white boys, all obsessed with us. And the only reason you'd be obsessed with us is because somehow what we identify as affects your identity. And if that is the case, then now you see why the prompt is what the prompt is. We got to speak to your identity crisis. What is going on with your identity crisis? I wonder. And hold on real quick. Let me switch something over here. All right, let's bring some guests up, guys. Let's bring some guests up. Who do we have backstage? We're gonna start with Sugar, then we're gonna bring up Spicy. Before we do, Belonging to God says, please help me. Can you help me? If you need assistance with genealogy research, just go to my website, nativeblackancestry.com. You can actually access my calendar, pick a day and time to connect with me one-on-one, where you can learn the 3-step process me and my family used to trace our heritage and get tribal citizenship with the Muskogee Creek Nation back in 2021. And since you mentioned help, here's a quick word from some of my recent clients.
Just finished my consultation with Mike. A lot of information in a short period of time, but it was very valuable information. I'm definitely excited to get started searching up my genealogy. He has been an awesome resource. Gave me a lot of information, a lot of things, a lot of pieces to the puzzle I didn't have. He was able to help me find them. And I 100% recommend Mike and his services to anyone who's looking to crack the code, so to speak, on their genealogy, because there's a lot of how we say fake news going around with this subject, and it's very important that people are able to put the pieces together, because if you don't know your history, you don't know your future. So 100% sign up.
Let's talk about it, y'all. Real people, real results. What are you waiting for? Make sure to check out nativeblackancestry.com. And as a thank you for visiting my website, I actually allow you to download a free copy of my ebook, Reclassified: The Hidden History of Black Indians in the Southeast from Indian to Negro. That ebook is jam-packed with historical resources, so make sure to take advantage of the free ebook. Sugar, when I bring you up, let us know where you're calling in from and what's on your mind. Where you calling in from, Sugar?
I'm in Atlanta.
All right, and you wouldn't happen to be a descendant of African migrants, would you?
No,
Lord knows there's a lot of them out there in Atlanta, ain't it?
it definitely is. And what's crazy is I was arguing with somebody on I'm pretty sure you guys might be familiar with Lemonade, because it's a TikTok app. But apparently there was like a girl, she's claiming to be like Cuban and white and a whole bunch of other races. And she told me and a bunch of other people that all Black people were from Africa. And it pissed me off so bad. And she just told me like, yeah, I love history and I study history. And I'm just like, girl, what history books are you reading?
Wait, you said her ethnicity was what?
She said, well, she claimed, this is social media. She said she was Cuban and white.
Oh yeah, come on. That fits into this Latino African this Latino identity crisis. Them Cubans are Latinos.
Right. And I just wanted to speak a little bit more about my background. So I have, elders in my family who told me that, for one, my great grandmother is pureblood Cherokee Indian. And we have pictures of her and you can tell like that she's Indian. And so I just wonder why, them knowing this, like why do they still religiously celebrate Thanksgiving? And it wasn't until this year I'm just like, okay, they brought it up again about our history. And I'm just like, I don't want to participate anymore, knowing that I have this blood running through my veins. Like, why am I still celebrating Thanksgiving? Doesn't make any sense.
Because all your life you grew up hearing about how they really screwed over the Indians and whatnot, but it's not until becoming an adult and doing the research that you realize the Indians was us.
Right.
So now it makes things a bit personal. Now it really puts things in perspective. Wait a minute. Hold on.
Yeah, and then upon learning this, I've also been on Ancestry, and
And real quick, I had to cut you off. Christian, no, I muted you because this is a live call-in show. So I'm not going to have you in my chat promoting mistruths about DNA when you don't even have the balls to click and call in. So in a second, you're going to get blocked. Go ahead and call in. We'd love to hear what you have to say. Until then, you're muted once again. Go ahead, Sugar. I guess these trolls don't understand the rules of engagement tonight. This is a call-in show. And thankfully, Christian actually did call in. So he's backstage. We're going to bring him up right once we're finished speaking with Sugar. Go ahead, sister.
But yeah, so I'm on Ancestry and I have a membership, and I've built my timeline all the way back to the 1700s, and we are still in the United States, not in Africa, not in any other country. We're in the United States, and my family was actually living on one of the biggest Indian reservations in Texas in the 1700s. So, with that being said, and me finding that out,
wait, hold on. And the funny thing is, a DNA test could have never told you that.
wow, really?
No. Absolutely. A DNA test is going to tell you you're 10% Nigerian, 30% Ghanaian, 40% Sierra Leonean, and in the fine print, it's going to say entertainment purposes only. Educated guesses are used. You can't use this for any legal thing or for any land claims. I mean, it's pseudo. It's entertainment value at best. But what a DNA test can't tell you is that your ancestors were living on an Indian reservation. What a DNA test can't tell you is your great great grandma in the 1800s was listed as a mulatto. Then by the time the 1900s come around, she's reclassified to a Negro, and then her descendants get reclassified to African in 1988.
I was going to say that too. A lot of my family members are mulatto on Ancestry. And I was trying to figure out what that was. And I got into an argument with people about that too, because they're like, oh, mulatto is for black and white. It has nothing to do with Indian. But I'm like, no. Right.
That is a big, big, big point of contention. A lot of people have the misconception that mulatto means like half. And it's funny how they say half black, half white, but they don't specify what the black is, right? So if we're going to say that all black people come from Africa, then they want us to think that mulatto is half African, half white, right? Well, for one, watch me just dismantle all this shit. Just in an expert fashion. Watch this. For one, if that's true, and as that person told you, mulatto has nothing to do with Indian, well, then why do I, as a digital archivist, and I'm going to place you on mute just while I break this down since there's a little static, why do I, as a digital archivist, have a website, nativebblackancestry.com, with a digital archive of over 600 documents? Family photos, newspaper clippings, book excerpts, Black Indian obituaries, you name it. You guys can download these to your phone, your computer, share them on social media. But guys, we've got some different tabs here. We've got Indigenous Americans. We've got Who is Indian, Who is Negro, which is actually a essay about how Virginia Indians during the World War II draft were reclassified as Negroes. We've got ex-slave interviews, where Black Indians talk about being kidnapped by slave traders from Indian territory and sold at slave auctions such as Shreveport, Louisiana. And then we've got Indian slave ads. And with this collection of Indian slave ads, I can prove that mulatto was a misnomer to describe an Indian. Check this out. Prince William, June 1st, 1776. Run away from the subscriber on his journey from Williamsburg. On the 11th of May, near King William County, a mulatto servant man. A mulatto servant man named John Newton, about 20 years of age, an Indian by birth. But we're supposed to believe that mulatto means half black, half white. But here we got Indians being reclassified as mulatto servants. Now you see why they call me the king of receipts. But this isn't the only one. Check this one out. Hold on. Where'd it go? Here we go. This is September 30th, 1851. $100 reward. Run away from the subscriber on the 29th. John, sometimes called John Carwile, a mulatto fellow showing Indian blood. Oh. And we know that back then they didn't always use the term mulatto. They sometimes also just use the term yellow. Maybe they call you a mulatto. Maybe they call you yellow. Oh, and look, it's funny. That person, I already forgot them. But Christian. Yeah, Demi Christian. He already fled the backstage, y'all. I knew he didn't really want to come up here and have no discussion. These motherfuckers don't never have no receipts. Oh, and I'm so sorry, guys. I'm so sorry. YouTube can see my screen, but I just realized that TikTok can't see my screen. Hold on. I'm over here telling you I'm the king of receipts. I'm telling you I got a digital archive, and I'm reading Indian slave ads and shit, and y'all can't even see my screen over on TikTok. So let me run that back real quick. Again, guys, on my website, nativeblack.ancestry.com, I've got a digital archive, over 600 documents, family photos, newspaper clippings, Black Indian obituaries, you name it. You can download these to your phone, to your computer, share them on social media, all that good stuff. And I've got a few different tabs here. We've got Indigenous Americans, who is Indian, who's a Negro, ex-slave interviews, and Indian slave ads. And this, again, is the first ad that I was reading. Prince William, June 1st, 1776. $10 reward. Run away from the subscriber on his journey from Williamsburg on the 11th of May near King William County, a mulatto servant man named John Newton, about 20 years of age and Indian by birth. The other one I just read was right here, September 30th, 1851, $100 reward. Run away from the subscriber on the 29th. John, sometimes called John Carwile, a mulatto fellow showing Indian blood. Let's talk about it, guys. They also, if they didn't call you mulatto, they called you yellow. Check this out. This one's going to be real interesting. I love to show this one. October 24th, 1800, $10 reward. Run away from the subscriber on the 15th. A Negro girl named Nellie. 16 years of age, flout built, rather short, yellow complexion, long Indian hair. If we're supposed to believe that Negroes are Africans and plantation slaves came from Africa, what African have you ever seen that's yellow complexion with long Indian hair? Yeah, I'll wait. So, see, guys, they trick you with the wordplay. They trick you with the colonial terminology. People think that Indian, Negro, mulatto are differentiating terms. No, they are synonymous. They're all describing an indigenous person. If you were dark skinned, they reclassify you as a Negro. If you were fair skinned, they reclassify you as a mulatto. And there were full-blooded indigenous people reclassified as mulattoes with no European admixture. And then there were also indigenous people that had part European admixture who were also classified as mulatto. And you have to ask yourself, if we know that there were so many plantation owners having not just babies, creating mixed families with their plantation slaves. I was just reading earlier about how George Washington's wife's father had like 700 slaves, and half of them were like his kids and shit. They were blending families. Why would a rich plantation owner ever mix his bloodline with an African slave? What benefit does a rich plantation owner have mixing his lineage with an African slave? Absolutely none. Zilp, zilch, nada. But can we list any reasons why a rich elitist plantation owner would mix his bloodline with an indigenous community? With a local indigenous woman? Absolutely. For one, perhaps you can convince some of her people to come live on your property and till the land on your plantation. For two, you can have half-breed children with her, and since indigenous tribes are matrilineal, the tribe will still accept that half-breed as a full-on tribal member, but you can raise him as an agent provocateur. Guys, I'm not just talking about... My ancestors lived this. This is history. Look it up. You guys hear about Indians that signed treaties that resulted in their tribes walking the Trail of Tears, right? Every single Indian that signed one of those treaties had a Scottish father and an Indian mother. I'm a part of the Muskogee Creek Nation. The half-breed Scottish sellout that signed the treaty that had our tribe walking the Trail of Tears, his name is William McIntosh. He owned plantations. He had slaves. His mother was a Creek Indian. Father was a Scottish Irishman. And his cousin was Governor Troup, the governor of Georgia. You see how this works now? Now you get it, right? Why would a rich plantation owner ever have a baby with a fucking African? Mix his whole bloodline with a fucking African. He would never do no shit like that. They look at Africans like they're, no. But you see how if the Scottish man has a baby with a local indigenous woman, he can raise his child to be a half-breed agent provocateur that signs his land away, signs the tribe's land away to his cousin, who's the governor, and now white settlers can come into the territory of Georgia. This is history. This isn't speculation. This is history. This is not conspiracy. Look it up. Fact check everything I just said. William McIntosh, governor of Georgia, George Troup, his cousin. His father's Scottish, Irish, Scottish Highlander heritage. Look this shit up. The Scottish have been coming into the Southeast and mixing and intermarrying with local indigenous communities since the 1500s for trade advantages. But we supposed to believe that plantation slaves came from Africa and they fucking on their slaves, having mixed families and shit with their slaves. And we supposed to think that these is Africans they're mating with? Okay, I digress. Oh shit, I forgot I had a panel member up here. Okay, I'm cooking. Sugar, go ahead, unmute yourself. What's on your mind, girl? I'm sorry. I went on one. You're still on mute, Sugar. There you go.
I'm sorry. I was arguing with somebody in the chat. Somebody named Brittany something.
Hey, don't pay these people no never mind when they ain't even got the balls to call in and say what they chest.
She says something. She's like, what about before the 1700s? Girl, obviously I'm still tracing my bloodline. I haven't gotten farther than that yet.
And Africans weren't brought to North America in large quantities prior to the 1700s. So what about before the 1700s?
Right. So what point did you just make anyway?
Yeah, hey, real quick, shout out to Saturn. Saturn says, my last name is Scottish, but it was on your surname list. Yes, there's a lot of Scottish surnames on the surname list on my website. On NativeBlackAncestry.com, I have a tribal surname list where you can see if any of your family's last names align with the 5 civilized tribes. And you're going to see a lot of European surnames, a lot of Scottish surnames because of the Scottish intermixing and because during the process of forced assimilation, indigenous communities adopted European surnames. So yeah. Hey, a lot of us got Scottish heritage, but we ain't got no African heritage. I got some German lineage. I ain't got no African in me though. These motherfuckers want to claim we're mixed. Yes, we're mixed with European because Europeans have been trying to mix with us and been colonizing us for 500 years. We ain't mixed with no Africans though. Some of us, but very few and far in between. But go ahead, Sugar. And Israel, the website is NativeBlackAncestry.com. And Don Juan, you're a musty bush baby bitch because you're talking in the chat, but you ain't calling in. Go ahead, Sugar.
And it is crazy because you can tell the difference between somebody who is from Africa and somebody who is Black and lives in America. Like the facial features are totally different. So I don't even understand why they say stuff like this. I think it's just to gaslight us. I'm not even sure.
It's because they have an identity crisis. It's because the only thing Africans have ever had going for themselves is their alleged kinship to us.
That makes sense. I mean, it's not like I'm ashamed or anything like that, but it's just that I know my background, so I'm not going to claim to be something that I'm not.
They use the shame as a deflection, as a straw man argument. You could never say that we're claiming to be indigenous because we're ashamed to be African when most of our ancestors fell for the government psyops that was the Pan-African movement of the 80s and the 90s, and we was rocking dashikis and unks and proud to be African. We ain't got no problem praising our African heritage if we actually have it. But if we learn that we've been lied to and we do our genealogy and we ain't got no Africans on the family tree, then we got to figure out what our real roots are. And guess what? It's right beneath your feet.
Right. And I did reach out. I have to go through my emails, but I did reach out to try to get some help with the rest of my timeline. And I'm sorry, not my timeline, my family tree. And they gave me a bunch of links, and it was a little overwhelming to look at. So I did want to speak to you about that because I know you said you do help with that. So I'm assuming that your process might be a little bit more easier.
Yeah.
Because that stressed me out just reading the email. Like, I appreciate the information, but it's a lot to fork through. But I definitely do want to get a membership, or whatever comes from finding out my family.
Yeah, it's all about reconnecting with the tribe of your ancestors, just like me and my family were able to do. Absolutely. And if you do need more like personalized guidance, just go to the website nativeblack.ancestry.com, scroll down the homepage. You can actually hold on a second. I'm not sharing my screen the way that I thought it was. Hopefully YouTube saw all the different fugitive slave ads I was running through and everything. I think I might have been stuck on one page for a moment. Hold on a sec. Let me fix this. We got to share the entire screen. Damn. Hey, YouTube, have you guys even been able to hear the callers on TikTok? Hopefully you guys have been able to. Empress, give me some feedback. I'm just realizing that my audio may not have been connected properly. Are you guys hearing Sugar over here? Yay or nay? Belonging to God says, how do I call in? Just click the StreamYard link in the chat. I'll bring you guys up. We already got somebody backstage in StreamYard that we're going to bring up in a bit. Empress says she can't hear. Okay, cool. All right, so as I was saying, if anybody needs personalized assistance, just go to my website. You can actually access my calendar, pick a day and time that works for you. I do hour-long consultations where I teach you the 3-step process that me and my family followed to trace our heritage and get tribal citizenship with the Muskogee Creek Nation back in 2021. And based on your budget, there's a couple different add-ons that you can get with the consultation. You can pay a little extra to have it recorded. That way I send you a copy of the recording. No need to take notes. You can share that recording with family, friends, et cetera, et cetera. Or there's an extra add-on where you can get more historical context. I give you an hour-long history lesson on everything from colonization to Reconstruction to modern day, really to fill you with historical context, because it's really not enough to just know how to do genealogy research, but you really have to be a cultural expert to a degree. You have to know a lot of historical context when it comes to the tribes of certain areas, why a county is named this way. When the forest is named DeSoto's Forest, who's DeSoto? What was he doing in that area? What tribes were they? What did they do to those tribes through the centuries? Walter Plecker, Racial Integrity Act, 1924, if you're on the East Coast. Naomi, leader of the Vital Statistics of Louisiana, who reclassified Black Indigenous people to Negro and colored. I mean, you have to have a lot of historical context to really peel back the different layers. But yeah, make sure to book a consultation through the website. If you go to the page, book a consultation on the checkout page, use the coupon code TikTok, one word, all lowercase, and that hooks you up with a 20% discount.
Okay, I will definitely do that, but I wanted to say one more thing. So I actually kind of live in the North Georgia area, and I noticed that upon moving out here, there's like a lot of names that kind of stuck out. And I think that a lot of it might have to do with Native Americans living there at one point. Like, there's a river up here. I think it's called, like, I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm just going to spell it. It's Oconee. Are you
Oconee.
familiar? Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. That's actually from my tribe. That's a word from our language, Muskogee. It actually means water people, or people by the water. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a river up here in the college town in Athens. So
Yeah, no, if you look at any state, any county, river tributaries, forests, they're going to be named after one of two things: either a European colonizer, or a local indigenous tribe, or a word from that local indigenous tribe. Do you know what Georgia's named after?
no, I really don't. That's sad.
King George of Europe.
Okay.
Do you know what Louisiana is named after?
No, not familiar.
Go ahead and give me a guess. No wrong answers. It's okay.
Mm. I
Just
don't even
guess.
want to
Hey,
guess
if
because I
no
don't.
no wait, if Georgia is named after King George, who would Louisiana be named after as far as
I'm
European
gonna
nobility?
probably King Louis.
Yeah, exactly. You got it, girl. You got it, girl. You got it. King
Okay,
Louis.
okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Who are the Carolinas named after? King Charles.
Ah,
Who is
okay.
Delaware named after? Europe nobleman, the Lord of War, Delaware.
Mm.
That's also how the Delaware Indians get their name. The Lord of War Delaware was sent there to beat the local indigenous tribes into submission. He did that, and then they renamed the tribe after him. So the state's named Delaware after Delaware, and the local tribes also been rebranded as Delaware Indians. Pretty crazy, huh?
Interesting. Yeah, I wondered that about like sports teams too, because some sports teams have like the Native American that's the mascot, and I
Mm-hmm.
always wondered why as well too.
Mm-hmm. Now, I gave you a few states that are named after Europeans, right? Well, now let's go over some of the states that are named after indigenous tribes or from indigenous words. It's actually like half of the states in the US. Massachusetts is named after the Massachusetts, which are the local indigenous people. Massachusetts basically means people of the Great Hill. Connecticut comes from Quenehuquat, which is a meaning of beside the long tidal river. I already told you about Delaware being named after Lord Delaware, but it was originally after the Lenape people. Those were the people in that area. Michigan, named after the Michigama people. Illinois, named after the Illiniwek. It means tribe of superior men. Wisconsin comes from Wisconsin, which means it lies red, referring to the Wisconsin River. Vermont is also from a Abenaki indigenous word. Ver means green, mont means mountain. Maine is also from the Mangu Higan, or the Maine tribe. This is also a Abenaki people. It's a word for mainland. Dakota means allies or friends. That's an indigenous word. Kansas comes from the Kansas tribe, meaning people of the south wind. Nebraska from the Mithaska tribe, means flat water. Missouri from the Missouria tribe, meaning people with big canoes. Iowa from the Iowa, meaning sleepy ones. And then when we get into the southeast, you've got Alabama, named after the Alabamu tribe, which is really just a name meaning tribal town or cleared thicket. You've got Mississippi, which is named after the Mississippi people. It means great river. Florida. The word isn't native in origin. It's Spanish since it was colonized by the Spanish, right? But basically, it's from a indigenous term meaning flowery. Tennessee is from the Tanasi people. That's a Cherokee town name meaning place, and then even places like Oklahoma. That's from the Choctaw. Okla means people. Hama means red people. And we can go on and on and on. But guys, look it up. States, towns, counties, national parks, they're either going to be named after a colonizer, a conquistador, or an indigenous tribe. But go ahead, Sugar.
Well, I appreciate the history lesson. I am going to go on your website so I can do some more digging, and I'm going to get out of your hair.
All right. Well, it was a pleasure talking to you.
You too.
You have a good one. All right, so here's the order that we're working on. We're going to bring Spicy up, then we're going to bring up Infamous Fader. If anybody else wants to call in, go ahead and request to join if you're on TikTok. If you're on YouTube, click the StreamYard link in the chat. I'm opening myself up for live debate. If anybody disagrees with tonight's prompt, which is as follows. Latinos and Africans have the biggest identity crisis. Black Americans are indigenous to America. Prove me wrong, call in. Or even if you don't want the smoke, maybe you're just seeking knowledge like the last caller, so you can pick my brain. I'm your resident expert. Unless you know somebody who can give you this kind of information live, unscripted, unedited. Let's talk about it. Miss Lane's Pressure just joined backstage, so we're going to do Spicy. We're going to go to Infamous. Then we're going to go to Miss Lane's Pressure. Spicy, when I bring you up, let us know where you're calling in from and what's on your mind.
What's going on, Mike?
Hello, where are you calling in from?
California.
North or south?
Southern.
Oh, okay.
We
Yeah, I'm
talked
from
a couple
Northern
months
Cali.
ago. Yeah, I came up on here. You was cussing some lady out.
That sounds like me. Yeah.
Yeah, but she tried it though. She didn't know what she was talking about.
Hey, wait, hold on. For people who are unfamiliar with me, give them the full context. I was cussing the lady out because she deserved it.
She did. She was on some bullshit.
I don't remember what happened, but I know if past Mike was cussing out a lady, it's because she was disrespecting our heritage, our culture, our ancestors, and she deserved every venomous word.
She just was talking about like a bunch of different tribes and shit, and she was just all over the place. Yeah, she was talking about what your one ancestor you was up here just talking about, and you like, that's my ancestor. I know what I'm talking about. But anyway, I wanted to come up because I had a couple questions for you. What do you know about the Osage Indian herders? Yeah, let's get into
it. Somebody brought this up a few nights ago. So somebody said, Mike, are those our people? Mike, why would our people mix with these and then get taken out by the Mike? What's going on there?
Right.
Them ain't our people. That's them Siberian migrants. That's them bear. Our people wasn't willy-nilly marrying white boys and then getting the house bombed by them so they could steal the oil. No, that's them. Come on. That's them Siberian Huskies. That's not us. That's not us.
My second question was going to be, what do you know of any Black American Indians who were considered part of a tribe outside of being called a freedman? Because why do they try to, and I asked that because that Sarah's Oil movie just came out, and that's making me think a lot about the land, and it's making me think like, why do they have to associate us with slavery by the Indians or the Siberians? That's what I want to know. And is there any actual historical records of melanated Indians being recognized without being called a freedman?
Damn,
I know. I want you to look. I want you to look.
Such a good. No, it ain't look. I ain't gotta look. I already know the answer. I'm just like you just asked such a good question. Because this is going to educate so many people. We're hearing in the news about the Creek Freedman court case, the movie Sarah Rector movie, Sarah's Oil just came out. There's no way that I can give a simple short answer. So let me just stretch my wrist real quick. Let me just crack my knuckles. I'm about to break it all. Now, guys, what I'm about to break down is actually part of a presentation that I give during the one-on-one genealogy consultations I provide. So consider this just some free game, right? But in order for me to properly break this down, I got to bring up an online whiteboard. So give me just a moment.
Okay.
Check this out. I'm going to break it all the way down. I said earlier, I'm your resident expert, right? Some people are new to my broadcast. They're like, you what? How are you an expert? I'm going to demonstrate my expertise right now, live and direct. Check this shit out. Check this out. We got to switch the screen a little bit on TikTok so you guys can see the whiteboard better. And away we go. All right, so first and foremost, You got to understand, when we talk about freedmen, there's two different types of freedmen. You got freedmen of U.S. territory, and pardon the chicken scratch. You know, you guys try drawing with a mouse on an online whiteboard. It's pretty challenging. You got freedmen of U.S. territory, and you got freedmen of tribal territory. Now, what's the difference between tribal territory and U.S. territory? Geographically, not much. We might be in Louisiana. Some of the acreage is owned by a local indigenous tribe, so that's tribal territory. The rest of the land is owned by the U.S. government, so that's U.S. territory, right? Well, let's start by covering some of the similarities between the freedmen of U.S. territory and the freedmen of tribal territory. First similarity. In U.S. territory, you did have some folks that were enslaved, and then they were freed, hence the term freedman. Pretty self-explanatory. Nothing wrong with that, right? Same thing in tribal territory. You had some folks that were enslaved, and when they got freed, they're regarded as freedmen. But here's the thing that most people don't realize. In U.S. territory, there were also people that were never enslaved, and they still got reclassified as a freedman. How does that work? Here's a good example. A couple months ago, an older lady, she hired me to trace her family's heritage. When I presented the results to her, I showed her a document where her grandfather had a labor contract negotiated in Louisiana through the Freedmen's Bureau. So this lady says to me, "Oh, Mike, my ancestor was a freedman, so he was a slave." Well, I then show her more documentation where her same ancestor is listed in the 1840 Louisiana census as a free person of color. Not only that, her ancestor owned plantations. Not only that, her ancestor owned slaves. But wait, there's more. I found the actual purchase agreement where her ancestor was buying slaves to grant them their freedom. It's called manumission. He would write in the contract, "When this transaction is concluded, so and so is free and has the full protection of my family." But this lady would assume that her ancestor was enslaved at some point because of this freedman classification. See how that works? Now, you also have free Black Indians, free people of color in tribal territory who are never enslaved, but when it came time to sign up on the Dawes roll, they get racially reclassified as a freedman. What is the Dawes roll, some of you are asking? Some people who've heard of the Dawes roll think it's just like the Indians keeping count of their tribal members or something. No, much more nefarious than that. The Dawes roll is named after Henry Dawes. Who is Henry Dawes? A Massachusetts senator. They sent a white boy from Massachusetts out to Oklahoma to pick and choose who's an Indian and who's not an Indian anymore. They created a Dawes Commission. They had white federal agents go interrogate our ancestors in their homes. Where are your people from? Do you speak the language? How long have you lived in the territory? And guess what? If they didn't like an answer to one of their questions, or if they didn't like the way they looked, then their Dawes roll application got rejected, and they get absorbed into a Negro, colored, or mulatto category. And if they were lucky enough to get placed on the Dawes roll, well, if they failed the brown paper bag test, if they were too dark skinned, they got racially reclassified as a freedman. Now check this out. What incentive does the European Rand Dawes Commission have in racially reclassifying indigenous people as freedmen, even though they weren't slaves? Check this out. When we talk about Indian removal 1830s, I told you guys earlier, it was half-breed Scottish sellouts who were signing these treaties. And when the tribes go west of the Mississippi to Arkansas, Oklahoma, they're going there thinking it's now Indian territory. They're going there because they now have a treaty with the U.S. government that says, go west of the Mississippi. You can have these hundreds of thousands of acres. We will not fuck with you. You will not have a single white settler step foot on your land. You're going to give us all your rich land in the Southeast, the finest agricultural land in the world. You're going to give it up in the Southeast, go to Oklahoma and Arkansas, and we ain't going to mess with you no more. That was the agreement. That was the treaty. But guess what? A couple decades later, some Europeans sneak over to Indian territory. they go report back to Uncle Sam and say, Uncle Sam, have you lost your damn mind? You don't realize that that land we gave them Indian folks to relocate to is rich with oil? So what does Uncle Sam do? They create something called the Curtis Act, which dissolves tribal governments. Hey, tribes, you ain't running yourself no more. We run you, the federal government, that is. After the Curtis Act, they come up with the Dawes Rule, the Dawes Commission, where these European agents come out to Oklahoma and pick and choose who's an Indian and who's not an Indian no more. So many of you guys have heard of the term $5 Indian, and you've probably asked yourself, how are these European settlers able to pay $5 to get placed on the Dawes Roll fraudulently? Because their European buddies were in charge of the Dawes Roll. That's how. Let's talk about it. Now, here's a difference between the freedmen of U.S. territory and the freedmen of tribal territory. The freedmen of U.S. territory were promised 40 acres and a mule. They never got it. The freedmen of tribal territory were owed 160-acre land allotments per person. Instead, they got shorted and they received 40 acres per person. So I guess you can say one group of freedmen got their 40 acres, the other did not, metaphorically speaking. Now, this is where the story of Sarah Rector comes into play. Look up Sarah Rector. They don't even really say nothing about her being a Creek Indian. Remember, I'm a Creek Indian. That's my tribe. She was a member of my tribe. They don't really say nothing about that. They call her the youngest, richest colored girl in the world in the early 1900s. Well, how did her family get all that wealth? Because they descend from Creek Indians who, because the color of their skin was too dark, were racially reclassified as freedmen. So instead of getting 160 acres, they got 40 acres, but they still got lucky because their 40 acres had oil beneath it. But I don't really know if it was a blessing or a curse. And then I don't really know if the movie actually gets into this in detail. I know they're going to talk about the conflict. I know they're going to talk about the conflict a little bit, but they're going to whitewash it. They're going to sugarcoat it because check this shit out. Check this out. When I researched Sarah Rector, I found out when the land that she inherited had oil beneath, she was assigned a white guardian. When I heard that she had a white guardian, I said, what? She was an orphan? I know she didn't have a mama and a daddy.
She had parents, and they still did it.
Exactly.
Still did it. And imagine how many other wealthy Black American Indians they assigned guardians to when their families were still alive and well.
No. Hold on. I'm gonna place you on mute. I'm gonna keep cooking, but I thank you for interjecting with that. She said, I wonder how many. Every single one. Every single Black Indian who already got disenfranchised by being racially reclassified as freedmen, by getting only 40 acres instead of 160 acres. Well, if their land had oil, the local government said that they were unfit to manage such wealth, so they were all signed white custodians. White guardians. Sarah Rector had a mother and a father, a whole nuclear family, but they still assigned some white boy to manage her financial affairs. She had grown men camping on her front door trying to marry her at 12 years old to get her oil money on some Tears of the Flower Moon Osage Clan type shit, but we wasn't going for it. The Klan tried to terrorize her off the land, come through with miniguns and shit. They're going to show a little bit of that in the movie, but I'm sure they're going to water it down a bit. But guys, when you look up Sarah Rector, you hear about the youngest, richest Black girl in the world, but they don't lead with she's a Black American Indian. When you hear about Tulsa, Black Wall Street, Tulsa Massacre, Greensboro, they tell you this is a Black town. Where's this Black town? In Indian territory. How did all these Black folks get all this land in Indian territory to make these Black towns? Because they were Indian. They took their land allotments and made the city of Tulsa and other famous Black towns all across Oklahoma. But you guys don't know that this history is hiding right in front of us. And now you see why I'm so passionate about what I do. Now, when the sister said earlier, Mike, is there any Black Indigenous Americans that didn't get racially reclassified as freedmen? Yes, my ancestor is one of them. But to be a richly melanated person and not get racially reclassified as a freedman, it seems to me you have to be a very notable person. And this is what I mean. If you go to my website, nativebblackancestry.com, and you scroll down, I have a little excerpt on my grandfather, Thomas Jefferson Adams Harjo, Creek Indian Town King, Chief Justice of the Muskogee Creek Nation in the 1800s. He's also written about in this book, The Indian Territory, its chiefs, legislators, and leading men. Matter of fact, he has a whole chapter written about him. And this is not the only book that writes about him. There are several. He was a very, very prominent individual. And God damn it, if I bring up the photo of him and blow it up a little bit, hold on. For anybody wondering if I just rip some random photo of some dude off the internet, I mean, God damn it, tell me you don't see a resemblance. Let's talk about it. But when you say, are there any Black Indigenous people that didn't get racially reclassified as freedmen? Yes, there are some, but it's challenging. Most, if they weren't able to fight it, if their family weren't famous enough, most got racially reclassified. But when it comes to my grandfather, because he's such a man of note, because he descends from such a famous bloodline, there's so many books written. I'm not talking about him now. On him, there's like 4 or 5. On the bloodline, the Perrymans, the Graysons, dozens of books. But if we look him up on the Dolls Roll, come over here to the Dolls Roll real quick. His roll number is 2145. His name is Thomas Jefferson Adams Harjo. 2145. Here he is right here, Thomas J. Adams for short. It says clearly under blood quantum, full. He is listed as a full-blooded Creek by blood, but I mean, if you look at the photo, even though the photo is black and white, you can tell this is a melanated man right here. Census records later reclassified him as a Negro. Oklahoma census records have him down as a Negro, but he's listed as a full-blooded Indian, member of the Creek Nation, Chief Justice of the tribe, Town King, member of the House of Warriors. I mean, let's talk about it. Now, we got to get back to the Dolls Roll real quick, because this is how the whole Creek Freedman court case you guys been hearing about in the news comes into play. Check this out. You guys notice that whether you're classified as a Creek Freedman or a Choctaw Freedman or a Chickasaw Freedman or a Cherokee Freedman, it doesn't matter the tribe. Do you guys notice that everybody labeled as a freedman has a blank spot? Do you see these blank spots? That's the blood quantum category. They purposefully did not record the Indian blood of those that are classified as a freedman. So when you guys hear about the Creek freedmen trying to get their citizenship rights back, this is what it's about. There was something called the Treaty of 1866. The Treaty of 1866 said all tribal members are created equal, regardless if they were ever enslaved or not. Well, guess what? When the $5 Indians finally got control of the tribes in the 70s and the 80s, guess what they did? We're going to focus on my tribe right now, but they did this in most of the 5 civilized tribes. My tribe, the Muskogee Creek Nation, in 1979, they changed our tribal constitution in the middle of the night. And this is what they changed it to. They said it's no longer good enough for you to have an ancestor listed on the Dolls Roll as part of the tribe for you to be a citizen. That's not good enough no more. From 1979 onward, to be a citizen of the Muskogee Creek Nation, you have to not only have an ancestor listed on the Dolls Roll as part of the tribe, but that ancestor has to also have a blood quantum listed. So thousands of Black Indigenous people were kicked out of the tribe overnight in 1979. Why? Because their ancestors were racially reclassified as freedmen and had no blood quantum recorded. I just gave you an example of one of my full-blooded ancestors, right? Well, let me give you an example of one of my ancestors that are not listed as full-blooded. Roll number 1017, Pleasant Tobler. During the genealogy consultations I provide through my website, I show Pleasant Tobler. Some people ask me, hey, Mike, Pleasant Tobler, it says his blood quantum is 1/2. Why is that? Was he like half white, half Indian? Was he like half African, half Indian? No. Both his parents were full-blooded Creek by blood, but his daddy, Fred, was too dark-skinned, so he got reclassified as a freedman. And even though he's a part of the tribe, if you're classified as a freedman, you have no blood quantum written down. So now Pleasant only has one parent with a blood quantum. So now he's a half blood. See how that works? Or what happens a lot of the time is you may have someone who has one parent that's a member of, say, the Choctaw, and then another parent who's a member of the Creek. So now you're still a half breed, even though technically you're indigenous on both sides, but it's not the same tribe. You see how this works? And here's the real kicker. Here's the real kicker. When people hear the term blood quantum, first of all, they don't realize it's a pseudoscience. The only thing in the world that goes by blood quantum are dogs and Indians. But wait, there's more. When you hear blood quantum, you think it has something to do with your blood. It doesn't. There was never a blood test taken. There was never a DNA test taken. Your blood quantum is predicated on what your ancestors were classified as. So if you're a European that has a cousin that's a Dawes roll agent and he can get you on the roll for $5, he lists you as a full blood Indian. Now you got a full blood quantum. Or guess what? You'll also see this IW. What does IW mean? Intermarried white. They were letting folks, Europeans, pay $5 to get part of the tribe. They was allowing white folks to marry into the tribe. They was adopting white folks into the tribe. When y'all hear about Indians that had slaves, you do know that this is the same class of Indian that was signing away treaties to the US government. These are half-breeds with Scottish fathers. And guess what? Some of them got adopted into these tribes in Oklahoma and bring their slaves with them. And now y'all running around talking about, what you think you're Indian? Your ancestor was just a slave of the tribe. The Indians was enslaving each other. These were half-breed sellouts who were raised to be Englishmen. Let's
Mike,
talk about
we
it.
can't see the bottom white part. It's blurry. What you showing at the bottom on the screen?
I don't know what you're talking about. Can everybody see the Dawes roll IW intermarried white?
I can't see it. It's blurry.
Okay. Yeah. Everybody else in the chat says it's clear on their end. So just let me finish out here. What was I saying? Almost lost my track of thought here. I'm up here cooking. Since I'm up here cooking, let this man cook. Okay. So again, when we talk about the blood quantum, it has nothing to do with blood. The whole freedman thing was meant to racially reclassify and disenfranchise these people. And when we speak to my tribe in particular, you guys may have heard that July 23rd of this year, the Creek freedmen won a court case granting them citizenship. But it's now, November, and they still haven't got their citizenship and been welcomed back into the tribe. Why? Because our chief signed an executive order delaying their admittance into the tribe. Why are they still trying to delay it? Why did all these tribes kick the freedmen out in the first place? Because Black indigenous people made up the majority of these tribes. I can bring up the actual quote from the chief at the time in 1979, where he says they have to kick the freedmen out because they're the majority and they have the biggest voting power. Guys, they're kicking the Black Indians out of the tribe in the 70s and the 80s. That's the same time they get on board with the federal government, create these gaming commissions, and get all these casinos and all this casino money. If the freedmen get back into the tribe, not only do they have voting power, but our tribe would have to get rid of all blood quantum stipulations, such as this. We have a stipulation in our tribe where everybody can vote, but in order to be on the national council, or in order to be a chief, you have to have at least a quarter blood quantum. That's how the small elitist class has been able to remain in power in the tribe and do all this funny shit with the money and kick the Black Indians out, etc., etc. But when the freedmen get welcomed back in, they have to get rid of all blood quantum requirements, meaning anybody can run for office. And now guess what? We probably gonna have a Black Indian chief. And when a Black Indian chief gets control of a tribe like that, that's making billions of dollars in annual casino revenue, imagine what kind of change they could enact. Now you see the fight that's being fought. So when you ask about the freedman thing, I just broke it all the way down. When you ask, is there any Black Indians that aren't classified as freedmen? Yes, there are. But a lot got classified as freedmen. And nowadays, because it's been so long and so many Indians marry out of the tribe, the average tribe in America has over 70% of their tribal members that are less than a quarter blood quantum. Why? Because even if your grandparent, like mine, is listed as a full blood, well, if their child marries someone, has a baby with someone outside of the tribe, well, now the blood quantum technically gets diluted. And if the grandchild and so on and so forth keeps marrying and having kids with people outside of the tribe, the blood quantum gets diluted and diluted and diluted. So you see, this blood quantum thing is a real tricky business. But go ahead and unmute yourself, Spicy. Let me know what you think about those gems I just dropped. Give us some closing remarks, and then I got to get on to some more callers.
You definitely clocked what I needed to know. Because when I'm doing my ancestry, I don't see enslaved people, but I see the multiple classifications, which you talked about before. All of those misnomers are us, and it's just further proof that we're Aboriginal. My next question was going to be, what was it? Oh, how do you feel about the land patents, land grants? And I'm talking about the ones within the tribal government and outside of the tribal government. Have you found any of those in your family or researched it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And not only do I find it in my family, but most of my genealogy clients, I'm actually able to source land patents where their ancestors had documents with the president of the United States of America for hundreds and hundreds of acres of land. And you have to ask yourself, if all Black folks in America come from Africa, how do these Africans come over here and secure land patents with the president of the United States?
That part.
Most of us have ancestors that owned hundreds and hundreds of acres of land in the Southeast. How did these Africans come over here, get enslaved, get emancipated, and right after emancipation, they have all this wealth and all this land? Where'd it come from? Why does the Freedmen Bureau need to create a Freedmen Bank to steal the resources of these recently emancipated people if they're African? How did they get these resources if slaves work for nothing? Because they lied to you about slavery. It's much more nuanced than you could ever imagine. They, through the Freedmen's Bank, they stole hundreds of thousands of acres of recently freed people's lands. Not only that, but they're responsible for $1 to $2 trillion of generational wealth being stolen from Black Indigenous communities of the Southeast, because the Freedmen's Bank within 10 years went bankrupt. Then white folks was gambling the money away. They convince you to put your money in the deposit box, put your deeds, your bills of sale in the safety deposit box. And then guess what? When the bank went bankrupt, your local Freedmen's Bank chapter burns up in the middle of the night. You're on your hundreds of acres of land. You go by the creek one day, you got some white folks squatting on your land. You say, wait a minute, what are you doing on my land? They say, no, look, I got a document. This is my land. Here's the deed. You take them to court. The first thing the judge says to you is, where's your paperwork proving that's your land? And you say, oh, shit. It was in my safety deposit box in the Freedmen's Bank that got burnt up. It was a scam. It was a psyops. And you have to ask yourself, if these are just Africans, where did all this money and all this land and all this wealth come from? If they were Africans, then guess what? You would emancipate them. You would free them. You would say, pay your taxes, be a good citizen, and you would leave them the fuck alone. But if they're not Africans, if they descend from indigenous communities who've been there in power for thousands of years, then you can't just free them and leave them to their own devices with their land, because they're going to outmaneuver you. They're going to outpace you. They're going to regain control. So you know what you have to do? You have to emancipate them and force them right back on the plantation. That's exactly what happened. The Union didn't really free anybody. They enacted legalized slavery. Your ancestor had the Freedmen's Bureau come to town, negotiate a land contract with their previous slave master. And I've actually read these labor contracts. I was telling you about one earlier. It would literally say you work 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. You have to call this person master. You have to respect them. Same shit. Living in the same shack. Same shit. Oh, but wait, it's not slavery anymore. This is modern employment. And what's your compensation? Well, when harvest comes, you're supposed to get a percentage of the crop, hence the term sharecropping. But what actually happened in reality was, when harvest time comes around, slave master pulls out his book and says, hold on, you owe me rent for that shack you've been living in, because you know you're free now. So even though you was living in that shack for free before, now you owe rent. You owe me for the food throughout the year, because you know back when you was a slave, you was getting fed for free. But now that you're free, you got to pay your way around here, right? You got sick a few times throughout the year. You owe me for the medicine. Matter of fact, you're in debt to me. So I don't know you any part of the crop harvest. Matter of fact, you owe me, and now you're working as a debt slave. And guess what? Our ancestors had the illusion of choice, because if they didn't want to go back to the same plantation, here's their only other option: go up north to a factory and work in an industrial plantation. And if you didn't choose option A or option B, guess what? They had vagrancy laws where if they saw you in the South just chilling, hanging with the homies, they can kidnap you, rendition you, put you in a chain gang, and have you on the plantation. Look it up. Don't take my word for it. Reconstruction era, sharecropping, Freedmen's Bureau, Freedmen's Bank, Freedmen's labor contracts. I know so much about this because I research this every single day. I just presented somebody's results earlier today where their ancestors had land patents, had ancestors enslaved, who were actually a mixed family with the plantation owner, which speaks to what I was talking about earlier. Elitist plantation owners having mixed families with local indigenous bloodlines, not African slaves, because there's no benefit to having a baby with an African slave, but there's so many benefits of having a child with a local indigenous woman, you know, like having a half-breed son who can sign the tribe's land away, like William McIntosh did for my tribe. And what did we do to William McIntosh when we heard that this half-breed fucking sellout signed a fraudulent treaty? What did we do to him? We went to his plantation, shot him 60 times, and burnt his plantation to the ground. He got assassinated. Cherokee, they also had a half-breed Scottish sellout, signed the tribe's land behind the back, signed the treaty away behind the back. Guess what happened to them? They got assassinated. Look it up, guys. Don't take my word for it. But go ahead, provide us with some closing remarks, Spicy. Then I'm going to get on to Infamous, and then we're going to go to MB.
So during my ancestral research, I came across something that said free man. So it didn't have the D on the end of it. What tell me about that?
Great. Hey, you batting 10 out of 10 tonight with the questions.
I
sister.
know.
God damn. God, this is how you ask good questions, okay? Most people don't understand the distinction. You have free man and you have freed man. Here's the difference. I already broke down the freed man. Sometimes they were slaves that were freed and now they're called freedmen. Sometimes they're not enslaved at all, but they're racially reclassified as freedmen. When we talk about free man, now we're talking about all these free people of color that are mysteriously on census records during the peak of slavery. One of the biggest hubs for these free people of color are the Carolinas. Look it up. I've done the research. You'll find 1830s, 1840s, tens of thousands of free people of color listed. And you have to ask yourself, if all Black folks in America come from Africa, what cruise ship was bringing free Africans over here to the East Coast in the 1800s? Wasn't happening. So where do these free men, these free people of color come from? They come from hostaged, converted Indians. These are indigenous bloodlines that have already been hostaged and converted in the 16th century, the 1700s. So by the time the 1800s come around, they live as English people. They're living in the town with the white folks. They're dressing in the same clothes. And to distinguish them from others, to protect them and their family, they'll adopt the surname Freeman. But guess what? That still didn't really protect them. That's where we get the story of 12 Years a Slave. Watch the movie. It's actually based on a real story. Solomon Northup. He was an indigenous man from the East Coast. I can't remember if it was the Narragansett tribe or the Nantucket tribe, but he was a free man. He was a violinist. Some slave catchers came up to the north, lied and said they wanted to hire him to play the violin at some event. They drugged him, got him drunk, kidnapped him, sent him to the south where he was a slave for about 12 years until he was able to get word to his people up north, and they came down and got him. This is the history. So when we talk about free man, these are hostaged, converted indigenous bloodlines. Look up all these Ivy League institutions. Do you guys know Harvard was created as an Indian conversion school? Don't take my word for it. Google the shit. Do whatever research you got to do to fact check me. Harvard was created as an Indian school to convert the local indigenous children. They would take you from 2 to 7 years old, release you back into your indigenous community when you're 21, and then now you're going around spreading the gospel, converting other tribal members. Look it up. They were not only converting and hostaging, but they were enslaving and shipping some of these Indians to the East Coast, from the East Coast to Europe, to the Eastern Hemisphere. You guys hear about Pocahontas. I guess you missed the part where Pocahontas died in Europe, right? Before they shipped them as slaves to Europe, they sent emissaries to Europe. They would get local Indian chiefs, get them on the boat to go to Europe to speak to the queen and stuff, broker a treaty, do negotiations. Okay, you guys are going to give our tribe this in trade goods, and we're going to let you set up some colonies on the East Coast. Some of you guys are confused as to how Europeans were able to colonize the Americas. First of all, it was the First World War. Several different European factions simultaneously colonizing our ancestral homeland for 500 plus years. We're still being occupied to this day, but this is how they did it. It wasn't because they stormed the beaches on some Normandy type shit. They came here as allies. They came here seeking trade. They came here making treaties with us. And when they got a foothold over here, and once they got a lay of the land, and once their numbers rose, they broke the treaties and started enslaving us in place. The word of the day is enslavement in place. Do some of us have ancestors that were enslaved? Absolutely. Did they come from Africa? Hell no. They were enslaved in place. If I'm a rich elitist plantation owner, does it make more sense for me to ship an African from the other side of the world to come here when the African has never even seen these crops that I need to cultivate? The African has never even seen these indigenous crops a day in their life, don't even know how to harvest them, how to plant them, how to plow the land? Or does it make more sense for me to take some of these local indigenous communities that were displacing, taking their farms and homesteads, converting them to plantations? Well, let's make some of them prisoners of war, have them work their own land like they've been doing for centuries, for eons, since they're expert agriculturalists. But now they work their land for our benefit. And we're also going to mix our bloodline with them and create half-breed children with them. And now you see how we get where we are today. But go ahead, Spicy, give us some closing remarks, and then we're going to segue to the next caller.
All right. So my last thing, a lot of my mother's side of the family comes from Goochland, Virginia. I'm not sure if you ever heard of it, but in Goochland, my grandmother basically is trying to figure out how our family owned land and resources, but were supposedly slaves, but she can't really find slave documents. And I'm trying to tell her that it's not, slavery was not the way that it was presented. A lot of people, a lot of our ancestors who were Aboriginal, they owned slaves, they hired people, and it wasn't how they perceived it to be, like what they tell us in the history. But I'm just trying to get that through her mind, but it's gonna take some time. She a little old school, but she knows that we've been here, but she also thinks that we're the Moors, and I'm like, no.
Moors are African conquistadors that helped the Europeans infiltrate our homeland.
Right.
Now, hey, if you do your genealogy, you might find some Moorish heritage, because those Moors also mix with indigenous communities. But the Moors, they're mostly going to have a presence in Latin America, because that's where, you know, the Spanish were. The Spanish did colonize the Southeast for quite a period of time, though. So if you have roots in Florida, Georgia, Alabama, it is a possibility. But a lot of people cling to this Moorish stuff in a pseudo fashion, not really understanding the history.
Now, how do you feel about
wait, hold on.
like-
This is some dummy in the chat. Well, actually, I'm sorry. I'm not going to call you a dummy. I'm going to be respectful. A biased person in the chat, and I say his bias because his name is literally Moor L. He says Moors are not African. Yes, they're North African Berbers that occupied Spain and Portugal for hundreds of years until they were kicked out with the Reconquista, and then kicked out in 1492 with the Alhambra Edict. But you identify as a Moor, so why don't you click request to join and call in, and you can be our resident expert on Moorish history, and let's compare notes, Mr. Moor L. But go ahead, sister.
and my last thing was, how do you feel about the idea of a lot of these countries being here in America first. Like we have multiple places called Greece and just all these different country names. How do you feel about that? Do you believe America is the old world?
Well, I don't think that like these countries were necessarily here first. Like Greece wasn't here at it. Like that's a whole different place. But yes, America is definitely the old world. It's falsely labeled as the new world. America was the first to rise out of the ocean's water from an unbroken line of Greenland down to South America, while Europe was just a few islands here and there. America has always been the cradle of life, the cradle of civilization. Guys, the cradle of life and civilization is not in Africa. It's in the Americas, Amazon rainforest to be exact, where they're doing LiDAR scanning and finding pyramids and mounds identical to the pyramids and mounds that we find in the Southeast, St. Louis, all up and down the Mississippian area. So yeah, anybody with half a brain who's done any research knows that America is not only the old world, but it is the land of milk and honey. We feed the world. Do you know how many of our indigenous crops is exported and feeds whole countries and shit? I mean, potatoes are indigenous to the Americas, fed all of Ireland. You be eating Thai food and shit. They be, mixing up the spices. That's from us. Tabasco pepper comes from Tabasco, Mexico, Yucatan Peninsula, Olmec territory. This is all us. Tomatoes, indigenous to here. Chocolate, cacao, indigenous to here. Maize, corn, indigenous to, come on. Wild rice. The list goes on and on. We are it. We are everything. That's why everybody and their mama wants to come here, wants to move here. If you live on the Eastern Hemisphere, you know how you show your fellow countrymen you're rich and you made it. Let's say you're in China. You know how you show that you're rich and you made it? You vacation in America. If you're an African and you're an elitist and you make money, you know how you show you're rich and you made it? You relocate to America. Everybody and their mama wants to move to America and never go home. Why? Because this is the origin of everything. Even when we talk about pyramid building, pyramid culture, Africa has 300 pyramids. The Americas has over 2,000. The biggest pyramid of the world is not in Africa. It's in Pueblo, Mexico, the Cholula Pyramid. The oldest pyramid in the world is not in Egypt. It's in the Americas. Let's talk about it. I can bring up Freemasonic text right now, written in the 1800s, that says that we had a global seafaring civilization and our armies were terrorizing all of Europe and Africa and Asia, and that we set Egypt up as a colony of ours because at that point in time, it was the center of the earth, and we knew that what was at the center would stand the test of time. These aren't my words. These are elitist, secret society Freemasons writing this in their esoteric text that you were never supposed to read. As a matter of fact, if anybody drops if anybody throws a 10 on it through a gift or a super chat or something, I'll take a commercial break and bring up that exact text and read it to you and share my screen so you can read it yourself. But go ahead, give us some closing remarks, and then I got to get on to the next person.
All right, it's been real, Mike. I'll save my 21 questions for the next time that I come up. But I think you have great information, and keep doing what you're doing, bro.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Thanks for calling in.
All right, peace.
Producer says, really? Over 2,000 pyramids here? Don't take my word for it. Look it up. Look it up. 2,000 to 3,000. Olmec, Maya, Zapotec, Teotihuacano, Tenochtitlan, Cahokia. The Philadelphia Museum of Art is built on top of a truncated pyramid site. Come on. You know what they did to our pyramids, our mound sites? Look it up. Most pyramid mound sites in the Southeast were destroyed and converted to cotton plantations. Let's talk about it. Some of the mounds to this day are protected as parks, and some of them are literally called plantation mounds. It's really sick what they did. But guys, we're going to bring up Infamous Fader, and then we're going to bring up more. Oh, thank God. More L82 called in. Hey, More L, I'm really glad you called in. I'm totally serious about you being a resident Moorish expert, because I know all about the Alhambra edict, how the Moors backdoored us, the Reconquista, but someone with the name More L probably has specifically looked into that niche part of history much more than I. So I would love to compare notes and see why somebody who's a Black American would ever identify as a Moor or make the claim that a Moor is not an African, even though they literally come from North Africa. But all right, guys. Infamous, let us know where you're calling in from and what's on your mind.
Yes, sir. Yes. What's up, Mike TV?
What's up?
I'm calling from Covington, Georgia right now, but I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, actually. So I've been watching you probably maybe almost 2 years right now, back from the Jermaine Shoemake when you was going off on him on down to going off on E Black. So keep doing what you're doing, man. So
hey, I appreciate it. You a long-term viewer. Well, let us know what's on your mind, brother.
All right, I just hear people calling in talking about Black people can't be Indians, talking about there's no such thing as a Negro Indian. But I'm doing research, listening to my mom, some of my family members. They kind of will stay low key and stay underneath the radar. But I just had to come out. That's why I sent you that document showing in Mocksville, North Carolina, showing the Negro, the Indians, native born in there, and those who are registration cards. And, I just had to put it out there for that, to whereas a lot of the Negroes were Indians. I mean, mulattoes are mixed with Indians. I mean, there's different mixers. Some are full blood, but either way it go, all of the admixture from what I've been finding out is still indigenous and still it's still indigenous. And there's no African. The African is like the unicorn, is like the mythological. It's very, very hard to find. Would you agree?
No, I would absolutely agree. And I thank you so much for calling in. To give some people some context here, this brother was in one of my live streams earlier. I was running a live replay, and he mentioned that he started doing genealogy research, and he found documents where his ancestor was listed as a Negro Indian. And as soon as he said that in the chat, I'm like, wait a minute, you got to email that over. I'm a digital archivist. I want to add that to the archive. I want to share it with the people. And lo and behold, he emailed it to me. I got it right here. I can pull it up. And I told the brother, hey, I'm going to be live later on. Call in if you can. So I'm glad that you answered the call. And check this out. This is the first time I've seen this. I've never seen a registration card like this before in my life. Check this out. We got the ancestor right here, Boss Bowman.
Yes, sir.
This is the race category. This is how they was doing the races back in, what year was this card? 1800s, I know, but when exactly? I'm not seeing the date exact. Sometime in the 1800s, but look at the race category. You got white, you got Negro, you got Oriental, and you've got Indian. And then from Indian, they've got citizen, and I assume this is non-citizen.
Right.
Okay. So, guys, back in the 1800s,
you see that US government down there too, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We're going to get there, but
right.
But guys, check this out. Back then, they were putting us into such small racial boxes. And no, I don't think this was 1882. This is his date of death.
That was his birthday, 1882. That card was actually in the early 1900s, getting ready for World War I.
I thought this is date of death. Oh no! It says birth. Okay, yeah. I might have zoomed in. I thought that said death. It's kind of old and faded. So his date of birth was 1882. But guys, look, they putting us into 4 boxes. You're either white, you're a Negro, you're an Oriental, or you're an Indian. And what has his ancestor classified as? A Negro Indian. Under Indian, it says yes, meaning he's a citizen of a tribe. And then under U.S. citizen, it says he's native born. So for all these people talking about Black Indians don't exist, this man on the panel is a Black Indian, and he can prove that his ancestor is listed as a Negro Indian.
And look at the occupation. Did you see what the occupation is?
No, I didn't even check. Farming. I'm not surprised.
How many of the pretendians do you know are sharecroppers and farmers? In Mocksville, North Carolina, and Statesville, you see what I'm saying? All of the sharecroppers, all of the people, the helping hands, the housekeepers, all of them were the Negroes and were the Indians, period, point blank. And this is in 1882, and he was born in 1882, and this is 17 years after slavery was abolished. Negro Indians were still being born in Mocksville, North Carolina. And that's a town to whereas people perceive it to be strictly African and slave, but all the people down there, they wide noses like me, like my mom. I showed you a picture of my mom and stuff, and they all were eventually reclassified as African. And some of them embraced not having the Indian connected to them, because back then they were hunted, they were the outcasts, they were the forgotten, still are the forgotten right now. The real ones anyway.
Do you mind if I show the picture of your mother?
Oh, go ahead and show her. Yeah.
Because come on, look at this phenotype. Got the straight black hair. Come on.
Mm-hmm.
This don't look like no African. I ain't never seen no African that looks like this.
Right.
Let's talk about it, y'all. Come on. And as you were saying, he's a farmer. Our ancestors were expert agriculturists. Y'all don't understand that from colonization to like Reconstruction era, it was like this. We were farming and we were farming and we were always farming. The only thing that changes is who our yield goes to. The French might invade the area and this area is colonized by the French, so the yield goes to the French. Then the British might be in control of the area now, so the yield goes to the British after the Louisiana Purchase or something, right? We're doing the same thing. It's like here, let me give you a simple example. There's a very, very, very excellent basketball player, and he's just playing basketball. He's just playing pickup games. He going hard in the paint. He just nonstop on the court playing basketball. And he don't know, but on the sidelines are different white men that are fighting over having ownership over him. He don't know nothing about that shit. He just on the court playing basketball. He worried about the next play, but he doesn't know. He went from one owner to the next owner to the next owner, and every point he scores benefits a different European entity depending on the time period and who's colonizing that area. But to the basketball player, he's just dribbling the ball. He's just playing basketball. He's doing what he does day in and day out. And that's what was happening with our ancestors. You got the French and Indian War. You got the Spanish coming to the Southeast. You got the British dominating, expanding outside of the 13 colonies after the American Revolution. Our ancestors were on their land tilling it always, but the only thing that changed is the Europeans that are in the area claiming to have control, claiming that most of the yield needs to go to them or else.
Exactly. Insanity.
And it's funny because I don't really hear of Africans being expert farmers.
Right.
I mean, I'm just saying, I'm not trying to pick on the Africans. I don't hear about any expert agriculture over there in Africa, any expert cultivation. I don't hear about it. And our ancestors were such expert agriculturalists, they literally took blades of grass and turned them into crops. Our wild rice came from grass that we manipulated for centuries and turned to wild rice. Corn or maize started off as a wild grass that we manipulated through centuries and turned into corn on the cob. Our ancestors were some magicians when it comes to the agriculture. So what makes more sense? If I'm a rich plantation owner, do I want to import an African from the other side of the world who's never even seen these crops and then somehow train them on how to cultivate it? Or do I take some of these local indigenous people that I'm disenfranchising and have them come work on my land?
They all were disenfranchised and they all were local, because what I want people to do that will try and dispute everything, what I've been doing for a minute, I would go to each colony, each state, each county, just to see, you know, how it was started, when it was started, who it was started by. And believe it or not, each one of them has a history. At least the colonies, up until America acquired half of the West Coast via signature. But outside of that, you'll realize the first 150, maybe 200 years, the wars were involving indigenous Indians, and the enslaved were the indigenous. There aren't even records and aren't even mentions of a lot of the slave ships. In fact, it's supposedly Africans that arrived on Virginia, which I lived up in that area, and I've been to that where that sign is. They weren't even coming. They weren't even supposed to be going to America. Supposedly they were coming from Mexico. People don't realize that the pirates, when they would go get the booty, they would actually wait until they would go down there and the ships would go get the pearls, go get the black gold, which would be the people. And then when they were taking it back to Spain, back to North Africa back to Europe, that's when the
Hijack 'em.
privateers would attack.
And most of those privateers are crypto Jews.
Exactly.
All European factions, whether French, Dutch, British, Irish, German, they all had crypto Jews in their ranks. So the way it works is there's some crypto Jews part of the Spanish conquistador parties because they're being kicked out of Spain, 1492. Cristobal Colon, Christopher Columbus, he was a crypto Jew. He was sailing not just to distract the Spanish because he was a double agent for the Portuguese, but he was trying to find a new homeland for the Jews. America is a crypto Jewish nation. That's why we rock with Israel so heavy. That's why they have so much power and control over here. The second destination Columbus went to in 1493 was the island of Puerto Rico. I was there March of this year. The Jewish presence is staggering. Synagogues all up and down the island. Y'all got to understand that the Jews are part of the colonizing parties. And when the gold shipment's about to go back to Spain, they let some of their other crypto Jews that are hiding in the other European factions know. And the next thing you know, some pirates just so happen to know when the gold is being transported and they come and steal it. Hence the Pirates of the Caribbean.
And to break down with those cards, they had the enumerators and they had the registrars. And when you would go in there, they would actually look at you, look at the documentation, look at what you were saying, where you were from, what paperwork and what card would show what era you were born in. Because back then they were all born in the houses, and they were born in the houses on their own territory, which were basically like shacks, and which would technically could be a reservation, or then they were the plantations and all of that stuff. And now it's just areas where they're houses. But the registrar. Go ahead. I'm sorry. What you say?
What do you think of this ignorant ass comment that Roy just had the nerve to say? Hold on. Roy just on YouTube says this card just shows there is a Negro who also happens to be recognized as an Indian tribe citizen. That is not saying the race is Indian. Well, dumbass, I got to ask you. Why would a Negro be listed as a citizen of an Indian tribe unless they were Indian?
Right. And then there were
the mental gymnastics.
Also, believe it or not, there were also different type of, I wouldn't necessarily say privileges. I would actually say that they were divisions based off of the Indians that were actually native born and that were currently in tribes, because some of them wouldn't really be trusted with like weapons, even though they weren't fighting at the time, but they still would have access to some sort of weapons, and they still could actually group up. Because remember, at that time, he was born 17 years after slavery was abolished. And think about it. The importation of slaves had stopped at 1808.
Exactly.
He was born a native-born Negro Indian in 1882. That's 80 years after the importation. So there were still Black Indians being born in Knoxville around that time. As far as with that guy, man, it is what it is, and that just lets me know that you're on the right track and we're on the right track. If you would have haters, to whereas he has obviously no reason to hate or anything.
Like we're literally looking at a card that does not say that there's a citizenship category and then a race category. Well, no, there is a citizenship category. Here's a citizenship category. It's U.S. citizen. And it said he's native born. He's not naturalized. Right? But this is just a race category. Over here, Indian, this is still under the race. Like, do you guys not have eyes? This is the race category. You have white, Negro, Oriental, Indian. And for Indian, they differentiate citizens and non-citizens. But we literally have people viewing evidence of Black indigeneity and they still try to refute it. Come on.
Yeah, like tribal, the different military personnel, some of the soldiers that were actually in tribes and out of tribes, there was different type of stipulations, different type of rules, but it's always just kind of fluff because everybody at the end of the day would pretty much do the same thing. And none of the Negro Indians were allowed to actually fight at that time anyway. So, and that had changed.
They even had laws on the books where like our ancestors couldn't gather in groups of 10 or more. They had laws on the books where they couldn't carry even walking sticks because they were so afraid of they were so afraid of these black Indians we've been hostage enslaving in place, converting for centuries. Now they're free. What are they going to do to us? Are they going to massacre us like they did at the Fort Mims massacre? Are they going to massacre us like the Yamasee did in the 1700s? Are they going to massacre us like the Seminoles did to Andrew Jackson's armies? They're so afraid. That's why in 1865, the same year the Civil War ended, the KKK was created. They were not lynching our ancestors and massacring them like that during slavery. It happened here or there. You'd have a slave rebellion. They try to make an example, cut some heads off, put them on pikes. But most of the massacres and stuff, I can pull up a map, y'all. Hold on, bear with me. We're freestyling right now. This is live TV. Let me see if I'm so good with the receipt game that I can just willy-nilly bring up a whole black massacre map, y'all. Hold on. We got the Louisiana Purchase map. We got the Indigenous Tribes of the Southeast. Walter Plecker and Friends. Reclassification PDF. Where is my map? Oh, I think I found it. Let's see if this is the right one. Let's see if this is the right one. Oh, yes, this is the right one. So again, guys, coincidentally, all the black folks come from the Southeast. And that just so happens to be where all of these black indigenous tribes were. This is not where you find the Mongoloid, Siberian, Bering Strait phenotype. You find that in the plains and the high desert, Nevada, New Mexico, Arizona. You don't find that in the Southeast. You find black people in the Southeast. And in the same area is where all these black massacres take place. And look at the dates on these black massacres. 1866, New Orleans. 1887, Thibodaux. 1868, Opelousas. 1873, Colfax. 1874, Vicksburg. 1875, Clinton. 1866, Memphis. 1868, Camilla. 1874, Ifwala. 1898, Wilmington. 1923, Rosewood. 1910, Slocum. 1921, Tulsa. 1908, Springfield. 1919, Elaine. 1917, East St. Louis. 1906, Atlanta. 1920, Okie. 1985, Philadelphia. 1919, Washington. Why are all these massacres all of a sudden happening when we get our freedom in the South? Because they are afraid of what these black Indians are going to do with their freedom. So they got to keep their foot on their necks, get the Klan to terrorize them off their land and get them to migrate to the North so that corporations can come and pump oil on their land and steal the resources.
Yeah, man. And based off of your toolage and your teaching, far as helping me with my genealogy, on my dad's side, I realized a lot of the mulattoes, that's where the mix was. And that's where the definite rumor of, the acknowledged Native American ancestry mix also. And so that mulatto family tree is very, very interesting. And it's easier for some of my friends and some of my family members to believe that that side of my family is indigenous because the way they look. And I also sent you, the pictures of them too, because of the way they look. But I mean, they're mulatto, and I still love every bit of makeup that they contain as well, that makes me. So, I'm very honored, proud of all of that.
We tend to not be ashamed of our ancestors. If we have European admixture, European ancestors, we research them, we learn about them. We try to reconcile when we find that some of them were slave masters and stuff. We research what was going on in Europe and the enclosure and the destruction of the commons that led to all of them being sent here by pawns of elitist noble families. I mean, most of these European settlers, although they're butchering and slaying indigenous populations and stealing their land, they are pawns. They're not kings. The kings never stepped foot in America. Why would they risk their life on a perilous journey for months at sea? The pawns came over, and the bishops and the knights. That's how you play the game of chess. And they fucked over the pawns so bad. They fucked them over so bad. Oftentimes, they would tell them, hey, you're going to sign up as an indentured servant, unaware that when they came over, they can be gambled like property and sold at the slave auction block and shit. But they would tell some of them, hey, you're going to come over, we'll set you up with some land, farm the land and stuff, pay your taxes to the crown and stuff. And here's 5 muskets for you and your family. And you're like, whoa, 5 muskets? Why do I need 5 muskets? Oh, we didn't tell you till you got over here, but this land that you're on, it's at the border of Indian War. Yeah, you see, the Spanish are down there with Black Indians in Florida. And, you know, we're up here in the Carolinas, so we want you to be in this buffer zone of Georgia to be pawns on the front lines. And on Sundays, you got to report to the local militia. They're using them as cannon fodder, literally. A lot of them came over here as slaves, straight up slaves. I mean, if anybody needs primary sources, and this is stuff that I break down during the one-on-one genealogy consultations that I provide through my website, but check it out. Exhibit A. Hold on. This first book is called They Were White and They Were Slaves, The Untold History of the Enslavement of Whites in Early America. Most white Americans are insecure about how they got over here. They did not come over here as pilgrims and noble people. They came as slaves of noble people. Look it up. Here's another primary source. It's called White Cargo, the forgotten story of thousands of white Britons who lived and died in bondage in Britain's American colonies. In the 17th and 18th centuries, more than 300,000 white people were shipped to America as slaves. It says urchins. What's an urchin? An urchin is like a poor homeless kid in Europe. Urchins were swept up from London streets to labor in tobacco fields where life expectancy was no more than 2 years. Brothels, aka hoe houses, were raided to provide breeders for Virginia. So the next time you come across a barbecue Becky that thinks her grandma came through the Mayflower, no, she was a whore in Europe that got kidnapped and sent to Virginia to be a breeder. You see why they're insecure about their history? You see why so many white folks be getting online telling us, no, dude, you guys were the slaves. We were indentured servants. Let's keep reading. It says hopeful migrants were duped into signing as indentured servants, unaware they would become personal property who could be bought, sold, and even gambled away. Transported convicts were paraded for sale like livestock. Guess what, guys? I have German lineage. My German ancestor was shipped here as a slave. That's what genealogy can reveal. I got the document. I got the paperwork. Hey, I ain't find no African slave in my family tree, but I found a German slave. Funny how that shit work, huh? Funny how that works. Watch. We'll go to Ancestry.com real quick. I'm a full-time genealogist. I do family trees for so many people, so I got to skim through here and try to find my family tree. Lord knows I be doing so many family trees for people. Hold on. Here we go. Lane family tree. Check this out. This is going to blow your mind. This is my ancestor, Franz Christian Hutmann. Franz Christian Hutmann. Okay? Let's read a little bit about Franz. Check this out. Let me see. Where's the shortcut to his profile? Hold up, y'all. Hold up. Where's the shortcut? Good old Franz. This is going to blow your mind. Here we go. He was born 1757 in Menger in Hoschen, Waldeck, Frankenberg, Hesse, Germany. There's a book written about this line of my family. Here's an excerpt from that book. This is how you do genealogy. Some of y'all got some European slaves on your family tree. You don't even know it. So check it out. This is a brief historical sketch of Christian Houtman and his son Jacob Houtman and their descendants. It says Christian Houtman, the founder of the Houtman family in America, was born 1757 in the Principality of Hessen-Kassel, Gremmen Empire. At that point in time, Germany wasn't even called Germany. It was called the Gremmen Empire. He was a fine drummer boy, and when about 16, was kidnapped by the Prince of Hesse and sold to King George III of England to the end and for the purpose of fighting the colonists of America who were at war with the mother country, striving for their independence. His father was a wealthy man and could have procured the young man's release, but for a difference between them, he was taken in charge by officers, and upon his refusal to join the troops, he was given 30 lashes for 3 consecutive days, after which he consented to obey the commands of his superiors. Nevertheless, before embarking with the soldiers, he said to his father, quote, "You force me to take the lashes, I'll go. But I will never fire a gun against the Americans, and I will never return to the fatherland." And he never did. On the morning of December 25th, 1776, he was struck by a gun cartridge and was not a cartridge. He was struck by a gun carriage and suffered a fracture of one leg. During the early morning, General Washington and his Continentals had crossed the Delaware and surprised Rowell's camp, capturing the entire band. Christian Hoopman was one of those taken by the Americans, but they treated him so well that after 3 months, he had so far recovered that he re-enlisted, but not with the British, but with a Virginian regiment, and acted as drummer boy until the close of the war. He settled in Virginia and received from the state 800 acres of land. It was located on the headwaters of Buffalo Creek on what is now known as West Virginia, Washington County, Pennsylvania. Let's talk about it.
Wow.
30 lashes per day for 3. He getting beat like Toby. Sent basically as a slave, sent to be forced to fight in a war against the colonists in the American Revolution. Just like some slaves in the Southeast during the Civil War were forced to go to battle with their Confederate owner and act as a I think they called them body slaves, because basically they would fetch them water and, do things for them on the battlefield.
Wow, that's insane. A lot of military records will show actually a lot of people's designation as well, because sometimes you'll see census, it'll be Black, but a lot of the military records, they would identify whether the Negro would be actively part of a tribe or not, because like I said, there were too many instances from what was passed down to me, too many instances of people still rebelling, still not doing and not 100% fully assimilating too. You know what I'm saying?
And real quick, QA over here on YouTube says, all races have enslaved all other races during the human lifetime. False. Not at all. African slavery was nowhere near as egregious as European chattel slavery. American Indian tribes taking prisoners of war was nothing compared to the European transatlantic slavery. The European slave trade was so crazy that even Europeans fought themselves over it because it was so barbaric. What are we talking about? Indigenous communities around the world would have skirmishes with each other, would take one another as prisoners of war, would even kill some of their enemies in a sacrificial format, such as in Mesoamerica, but they demonize that and make it seem like they was just like, sacrificing just random people. No, these are motherfuckers they just went to war with. That's what our U.S. government does to this day, right? They drone striking civilians and butchering a whole bunch of people in the name of democracy, right? But when we do it, oh, you Indians had slaves too, so how dare you talk about the Europeans have... No community in the world had any kind of massive global slavery system such as the one that the Europeans enacted. Ugh.
You're right. You're right. And then speaking with the Army too, it's like a lot. I would look back, a lot of my great grandfathers, a lot of them been into the military, but a lot of that still, and even still now, even with me, veterans there, whatever, it's more of gaining tactics, techniques, procedures, understanding SOPs, standard operating procedures, preparing, battling, because when and if that war comes, it's like there's a lot of people who people think they're African American, but they're not. They know they're not. They're going to let them call them African American, but then they're in uniform. But then if anything push comes to shove, they already know which side they'll be on. So there, in fact, there's a lot of them in there right now that could technically be imposters, and they're being trained by the people that that they may end up having to fight. If you know what I'm trying to hint at, you see what I'm saying? So
I feel you.
if something was to go down, and everything is going to be just fine. So a lot of people,
but at the same time, we got to watch out for that, because oftentimes, and first of all, we're definitely heading towards some kind of quasi civil war. And the only reason why I say that is because the Hegelian dialect says problem, solution, but these Jewish, Zionist, Kabbalistic people, they believe that they're right in the eyes of their God as long as they make it painfully obvious what they're doing. That's why before 9/11, there was a bunch of movies and TV shows about a plane hitting the World Trade Center. That's why The Simpsons predicts a whole bunch of weird shit. That's why they put it in the movies. That's why all the movies are about civil wars now. They literally came out with a movie not so long ago called Civil War. The news is talking about civil wars. They're going to be a civil war. They're going to be a class war, right? Guys, you got to watch out for this, because a lot of us will say, well, hey, if a civil war breaks out, the military is not really gonna go against their own civilians. Like, the actual soldiers aren't gonna like go to the streets of the US and go against civilians. You got to understand that's not the case. A lot of the people in the military nowadays are foreigners trying to get a green card. The last administration was not just opening the borders. They allowed these fucking migrants to become police officers and join the military, get a badge and a gun, and they don't even got citizenship. And they're putting them in control of citizens and policing and stuff. So you got to watch out for that. There's a lot of African migrants in the military right now who wouldn't mind rounding up the Akatas and putting them in a FEMA camp.
And Russians too, because even when I was in basic training, there were like some Russian females in there that kind of just stood out. But I mean, you're absolutely right. But then at the end of the day, it's like I believe that certain people will pick and choose. Now, it might get ugly for a little bit, especially with how Trump is sending, like, okay, they instead of sending the California Guard to California, they'll send like another state to that actual state. So I mean, I can see that happening. It could get ugly, but if shit really hits the fan, I'm hoping that some people would make the right choice. And you're absolutely right. Like, I'm hoping. So, but if not, then hey, they already picked their side. And so, it is what it is. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, but also we have to learn and realize, first of all, we're gonna be all right. We done survived so many wars, French and Indian Wars, 7-year wars, Revolutionary Wars, Civil War, War of 18. We fought in every armed conflict in the soil since the beginning of time. Every major U.S., everything we've been a part of, and we've survived. Vietnam, you name it. But you got to realize this. This is an opportunity for us. This is a grand opportunity. When the United States government is fighting too many wars on too many fronts, it's easier for us to enact change. What was happening during the Civil Rights Movement? What war was happening during the Civil Rights Movement? World War II. They're preoccupied with World War II. Black Americans are pushing for legislation. We're able to get some things passed. Of course, it was a psyops. Of course, they led us into a burning house. But what I'm trying to get into is my goal, at least, is to start a national organization that can lobby Congress for congressional hearing on the racial reclassification of Native Black Americans. Well, it's a lot easier to fly under the radar and galvanize the community and spread the word and get the mission out there while Uncle Sam's distracted with a war against China and Taiwan and going back to the Middle East and protecting Israel and protecting the border and hiding the Jeffrey Epstein list, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we've got to use times of turmoil and conflict to our advantage. It's just like economics. There's a saying, be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful.
I like that.
When everybody's running around like everything's good, the market's up, that's when you be fearful. Shit about to crash. There's just something's going on here. But when everybody's being fearful and the market crashes and stuff, that's when everything's half off. if you're ready for it, that's when general wealth is created. So when shit hits the fan and another white boy shoots up a school here and another right-wing white supremacist gets assassinated like Charlie Kirk, our name is Bennett, we ain't in it. We need to do some research. We need to know tactics, the difference between cover and concealment. We need to get concealed carry permits and buy arms legally if you're able to and stuff. But come on, let's talk about it. Oh, and it's so cute. I just got a notification from TikTok that my live is being restricted from recommendations because I am promoting misinformation that may cause moderate harm. Meanwhile, the white boys can sit up on TikTok all day running drills and game theories about civil wars and talking about starting little militias and shit. The first thing we talk about getting our community sharpened up, TikTok says, wait a minute, you might be promoting harm.
Okay. And you got receipts too, documentation, pictures, everything, testimonials. So I don't get it. I don't understand it.
Hey, it is what it is, what it's gonna be. But hey, brother, go ahead and leave us with some closing remarks. And I got our resident Moore backstage on TikTok still. More L. We'll see what he has to say, and then we'll see if we have any more live callers or if we're gonna wrap up. And shout out to Coleman. Coleman says, my dad always said, prepare for war in times of peace. Exactly.
I like that. Yeah, one of my closing remarks is, I've been actually studying the different censuses since you put me on doing my genealogy and everything. And then I've been studying the different amounts, like, that white is 49% and African, then the black will be like 15 or 14. But then those numbers, they can never be right. No census can ever be right. I remember one of my grandmothers used to say that when the enumerators would come around the house, they would actually hide their kids because they just didn't trust them. And so now I personally know black people who have family members who are on their census that they check their brothers and sisters listed as white, but they have both black family members. You know what I'm saying? I know people that are identifying as white that we both know are definitely not white, and they're swarthy just like me, or even a little lighter, and they're identifying as white as well. So it's like, I'm curious. I'm still trying to figure out, like, that number is completely off, but I'm wondering, like, how can a group of people that's only 10% of the world's population be almost 45% of the population of this country? It's just amazing, and something's not adding up. That's about it. But Mike TV, keep doing your thing, man. I appreciate you enlightening us, doing us, and putting us all in the right direction, man. Keep doing your thing.
And wait, hold on. When you were talking about I was enlightening you with the genealogy, are you just talking about by watching my content, or did we have a consultation together?
By watching your content, but
Okay, cool. No, hey, I meet with so many people. We could have had a consultation, a few months ago, and I just forgot about it. That's why I was like, hold up.
I'm hitting roadblocks, man, and you're a lot faster than I am. So, and it's time consuming. So, I definitely will be reaching out though.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, I look forward to connecting with you, and thanks for sharing those family receipts. I'm definitely going to add those to the digital archive and use that as a case study in a lot of my presentations.
Yes, sir. Thanks. Have a good one, man. Be blessed.
Take it easy, brother. Peace. All right, we're going to bring up our resident Moore in just a second. Over on TikTok, Katie Anderson says, my grandma says those census folks couldn't spell. That was on purpose. They could spell, but they purposefully misspelled our ancestor's name. This is the process known as paper genocide. Check this out. In my research, I discovered an article from 1970. It took me 6 hours straight searching through newspaper archives. It cost me hundreds of dollars paying for archival memberships to find this newspaper article entitled, When is an Indian not an Indian? It's when he's a Negro. And I'm just going to give you one little excerpt from this. This is from a census taker. Who is an Indian? When the United States government counts heads, it says we are whatever we say we are. A census taker now working in South Kingstown in preparation for the 1970 census said recently, quote, if they tell me they are Indian and they look Negro, I put down what they say and change it later. Aren't Indians supposed to have high cheekbones? We literally have a census taker admitting to racially reclassifying indigenous people. We have a census taker admitting that they're going off of lookership instead of genealogy. Guys, in the 1970s, we had all these cowboy and Indian TV shows and movies where they had fucking Asians and Italian actors playing Native Americans. There was a huge psyops with Walt Disney and all the media figures to promote this Asiatic Bering Strait phenotype as what it means to be a Native American. So when the census taker says they look Negro, what the fuck does a Negro look like? What does a Negro look like? What is a Negro? Oh, someone who's melanated with thick lips. Okay. All right. I got it. Next caller is, let me see who's backstage. We're going to bring up More L82. Then we're going to bring up Flight Chief. And if nobody else is going to call in, then those will be our last two callers. More L, where are you calling in from?
Hello?
More L, where are you calling in from?
Calling it from Cali, California.
All right. You wouldn't happen to be descendant of African migrants, would you?
Not at all.
Okay, but you identify as a
What's
Moor,
an
right?
what do you consider an African migrant? And what does Africa mean to you and your definition?
Okay, time out. If you're gonna ask me a question, ask me one question at a time. Your first question was, what do I consider an African migrant? Words matter. I go by the definition of words. A migrant is someone who migrates from one land to another land. An African is someone from the continent of Africa. So an African migrant is kind of self-explanatory. But real quick, what was your, actually, before we even get to your second question, I've got a question for you since I answered your first question. In my chat, you said something about we've got it in reverse. Can you unmute yourself and let us know what we have in reverse?
The whole slave story, matrix thinking. And for one, Africa means land without codes. So if land without code could be an
Okay. You're saying a lot. You have to be short. You have to be concise. You just rattled something about we've got a slave story matrix thing in reverse. And now you're talking about Africa being, sir, these are the rules of engagement. When I mute you, it's because I'm interjecting. You stay on mute until I'm done. You'll know when I'm done because I'll say you can unmute yourself now. So let me just get everybody caught up. I said, hey, in the comment section, you said we had something in reverse. What do we have in reverse? You said the slave story matrix thing. What slave story matrix thing are you talking about? And then we can get on. Did I not just tell you not to fucking unmute yourself and interrupt me, boy? Did I not just say stay on mute until I tell you it's your turn to speak? If you can't follow directions, you can kick rocks. It's 1 a.m. I don't need to speak to you. You're calling in to talk to me. Have some decorum. Stay on mute or leave. Jesus. So first he's saying the slave story matrix thing. I want to have him elaborate on that, and then we'll go to his claims of Africa meaning a place without codes. So sir, unmute yourself and let us know what slave story matrix thing you're referring to.
Right. For a lot of this. Well, you explained a lot of that right after I typed it, because you went into, of course, some of the white gold stuff. But if you study the Bounty Act, where you get the title sheriff and marshal, the Bounty Act of 1721, it actually started in 1714 with Queen Anne.
Slow down. I'm not even going to mute you. I just want you to slow down. You just said a Bounty Act of 17 what?
1714, Queen Anne's Bounty Act of 1714.
Okay, so Queen Anne's Bounty Act of 1714. I get it. And you're referring to Queen Anne's War.
Right.
Okay.
This is where you see these people.
Time out. I'm still trying to understand why you said the phrase slave story matrix thing. What is a slave story matrix?
I said matrix thinking.
What does matrix thinking mean?
The roots idea that Africans came here as slaves is completely false.
So Africans didn't come here as slaves.
No, it was European nobles being dispatched through the Cape of
Time
Africa.
out, time out, time out, time out, time out, time out, time out. Just stay on mute for just a second. I've never heard somebody claim that Africans did not come over here as slaves. It's well documented that Africans sold other Africans to Europeans for trinkets and shipped them to the Americas as slaves. Most of them went to South America, Brazil. Second largest destination was the Caribbean. But are you promoting that the transatlantic slave trade is a hoax, that it didn't exist? Go ahead, unmute yourself.
Well, you just proved my first theory of you still being in that thought matrix.
You
Yes,
haven't even helped us understand what matrix you're talking about. So don't say that I helped you prove a theory about being in a matrix when you still haven't even told us what matrix you're referring to, sir. I'm confused. Can you make this more simple?
the idea of African slaves. I'm gonna do this one more time with you because I don't really don't have the time either. But the theory of African slaves coming from Africa in the 15 and 1600s, and those 30 odd some odd Negroes found in 1619, which didn't confirm they were Africans. They were really most likely pearl divers lost at sea. If you really get into those 30 odd Negroes.
So African slaves being shipped to Virginia weren't really African slaves. They were pearl divers lost at sea. And Africans never got trafficked as slaves over here. It was European noble bloodlines. And I'm talking about a slave story matrix way of thinking. Sir, this sounds like a whole bunch of pseudo shit. This is what we're gonna do. This is what we're gonna do. You, for some reason, do not know how to stay on mute when I mute you. I keep having to mute you. This is what we're gonna do. We're gonna let my audience have the luxury of choice. Guys, put a 0 in the chat. If you, oh, he already fled. Okay, cool. Thank God. I was gonna have you guys vote to see if he gets a timer and speaks 2 minutes uninterrupted. I really didn't want to hear what the fuck he had to say. This the motherfucker in my chat claiming to be a Moor, guys. These are the pseudo low IQ high school dropouts in our community claiming we got to overstand, understand Black Law's Dictionary, Maritime Law, Matrix, slave codes. Africa just means land without treaties, and African slaves never came here. They were pearl divers. What the fuck did he just say? Sir, you aren't qualified to have this discussion. Nigga probably ain't even done his genealogy talking like that. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. I don't even want to speak on him anymore because I feel like I'm punching down. I mean, that's just Jesus. You just embarrassed the fuck out of yourself. I hope you know that. Let me see what you guys are talking about. Y'all said, yeah, if he would have stayed for 2 minutes for the 2-minute timer, it would have made a good laugh. Yeah. Yeah. White says, yeah, he was talking some wildness. Yeah. I mean, come on. He said he opened up saying that I've got it in reverse. I say, what do I have in reverse? He says the slave story matrix thing. I'm like, what slave story matrix thing? And then he just tried to get us to go into the matrix with him. Nigga, we're not going down your pseudo rabbit hole to see how far it goes. Y'all cracking up, y'all. Y'all cracking up. He don't have the time. Yeah, he don't have the time, but he waited backstage for like 15 minutes to speak to me about his pseudo Moorish bullshit. Y'all saying he's a goofy. Y'all cracking up at him. Yeah. Sugar says he didn't even say anything. He said so much back to back in the chat, though. Exactly. These motherfuckers say a bunch of pseudo shit in the chat. And then when we let them call in, we hear them just babble nonsensical rhetoric. I mean, hey guys, can I get some fists or feathers if I've made way more fucking sense up here all 2 hours straight that I've been live freestyling off the top of my head, breaking down the Freedman classification, Sarah Rector, racial reclassification, had a brother come up, we showing census records and registrar documents and Freedman rolls, and damn. It's like y'all just saw Michael Jordan and then y'all saw a 600-pound man at the YMCA attempt to dribble a basketball. Like that's the disparity in talent that you just witnessed as far as scholarship. I mean, what kind of pseudo shit did we just listen to? Black Mamba says, I was so confused. He's confused too. This is that African identity crisis I speak of. He said he does. He said he doesn't descend from African migrants. Then he asked me, what's an African migrant? Motherfucker, you don't know what an African migrant is? And then he was also in the chat saying Moors don't come from Africa. Then where do they come from? Asia? Do they come from Japan? Do they come from Greece? Okay. Yeah. Coleman says he's making up a so-called matrix community of African community in the 1700s. That's crazy as hell. Yeah, I've never heard somebody claim that Africans were never shipped as slaves to America and that they were pearl divers. You learn something new every day, I guess. All right. Tukwa says, I need lion's mane mushroom tea now. Hey, I need a joint. I need to pack a cone. HED mom says, lost soul. Yeah. Y'all saying he was pivoting. Yeah. Lewis says, I just need to figure out how to get past 1870 on my Ancestry. Hey, go to the website, book a consultation. I'd be happy to help you. Hey, Lewis Gold Live, I got to ask you this. If I've dropped so many gems like this off the top of my head, freestyling on the live stream, chatting with you all, imagine what kind of information I would help you reveal during a one-on-one genealogy consultation. Just imagine. Tuqual says, appreciate you. I'm a cash app you once I get paid. Hey, I appreciate it. Instead of cash apping me, I want you to get something tangible for your money. To become a member of the website, it's $15. I would advise you to become a member of the website. And if you become a member of the website, then you can actually have access to my digital archive where I've got a bunch of documents, family photos, newspaper clippings, book excerpts, Black Indian obituaries. The list goes on and on and on. Earlier, we were covering some of the Indian slave ads. I've even got ex-Indigenous slave interviews. I mean, y'all, if you want to read firsthand accounts of Indigenous people captured as slaves and reclassified, hey, $15, access to a whole archive. Check this out. Spence Johnson. I'm gonna just give you a little taste. Spence Johnson was born free, a member of the Choctaw Nation in the Indian Territory in the 1850s. He does not know his exact age. He and his mother were stolen and sold at auction in Shreveport to Riley Surratt, who lived near Shreveport on the Texas-Louisiana line. He has lived in Waco since 1874. If you want to read the first-hand account from Spence Johnson, it's in the archive. I'll even read the first passage for you just to show you how crazy this shit is. Indigenous tribes were enslaved in place even until the 1850s. Now, he does use the N-word with a hard R, and you know, community guidelines. So instead of saying the N-word with the hard R, I'm going to substitute it for grr. If you guys hear me say grr, you know, I'm trying to say the N-word with the hard R without saying the N-word with the hard R. It says, the grr stealers done stole me and my mammy out the Choctaw Nation up in the Indian Territory when I was about 3 years old. Brother Knox, Sis Hannah, and my mammy and her 2 stepchillin was down on the river washing. The grr stealers drive up in a big carriage, and mammy just thought nothing, cause the fort was near there, and people on the road was stopping to get water for the horses and rest a while in the shade. By and by, a man coaxes the 2 biggest children in the carriage and give them some kind of candy. Other children see this and goes too. The 2 other men was walking around smoking and getting closer to mammy all the time. When he can, the man in the carriage got the 2 big stepchildren in with him, and me and sis climbed in too to see how come. Then the man holler, get the old one and let's get from here. With that, the 2 big men grabbed mommy, and she fought and screeched and bit and cried, but they hit her in the head with something and drug her in and thrown her on the floor. The big chillin began fighting for mammy, but one of the men hit him hard, and off they drive with the horses under whip. This was near a place called Baggy Depot. They went down the Red River, crossed the Red River, and down in Louisiana to Shreveport. Black Indian family stolen at the river washing clothes. The kids lulled to the carriage with candy. They hit mama, throw her in. The man being interviewed right here was 3 years old at that time. And imagine how long he was enslaved in the Southeast. And motherfuckers nowadays want to act like this is an African when he was born in the Indian Territory, stolen from the Choctaw Territory. You can't make this up. You see why you call me the king of receipts? And this isn't the only indigenous slave interview I have. I've got several. Let's talk about it. The king of receipts. I'll give you another taste. This is Ellen Cragen. I was born on the 10th of March in some year. I don't know what one. I don't know whether it was in the Civil War or before the Civil War. I forget it. I think that I was born in Vicksburg, Mississippi. I'm not sure, but I think I was. My mother was a great shouter. One night before I was born, she was at a meeting and she said, "Well, I have to go in. I feel something." She said I was walking about in there, and when she went in, I was born that night. My mother was a great Christian woman. She raised us right. We had to be in at sundown. If you didn't bring it in at sundown, she'd whip you within an inch of your life. She didn't work in the field. She worked at a loom. She worked so long and so often that once she went to sleep at the loom. Her master's boy saw her and told his mother. His mother told him to take a whip and wear her out. He took a stick and went out to beat her awake. He beat my mother till she woke up. When she woke up, she took a pole out the loom and beat him nearly to death with it. He hollered, "Don't beat me no more, and I won't let him whip you." She said, "I'm gonna kill you. These black titties sucked you, and then you gonna come out here and beat me?" And when she left him, he wasn't able to walk. Hey, let's talk about it. King of Receipt strikes again. Let's keep reading. And that was the last I seen of her until after freedom. She went out and got on an old cow that she used to milk. Dolly, she called it. She rode away from the plantation because she knew they would kill her if she stayed. My mother was named Lavinia Polk. She got plumb away and stayed away. On account of that, I was raised by my mother. She went to Atchison, Kansas, rode all through them woods on that cow, tore her clothes all off on them bushes. Once a man stopped her and she said, "My folks gone to Kansas and I don't know how to find them." He told her just how to go. Now check it out, guys. Check it out. Next passage. My father was an Indian. I repeat, my father was an Indian. Way back in the dark days, his mother ran away, and when she came up, that's what she came up with, a little Indian boy. They called him Wahuchi. His master's name was Tom Polk. Tom Polk was my mother's master too. It was Tom Polk's boy that my mother beat up. My father wouldn't let nobody beat him either. One time, when something he did didn't suit Tom Polk, I don't know what it was, they cut sores on him that he died with. Cut him with a rawhide whip, you know, and then they took salt and rubbed it into the sores. He told his master, "You have took me down and beat me for nothing, and when you do it again, I'm going to put you in the ground." Papa never slept in the house again after that. They got scared, and he was scared of them, so he used to sleep in the woods. They used to call him Wahuchi and red-headed Indian brat. I got in a fight once with my mistress's daughter on account of that. The children used to say to me, "They beat your papa yesterday." And I would say to them, "They better not beat my papa." And they would go up to the house and tell it. And I would beat them for telling it. Damn. Am I not showing you definitive evidence that Black indigenous people were kidnapped and enslaved in place? Am I not showing you a case study on how nuanced slavery is? Our ancestors weren't no meek, servile people, just getting whipped and taking it lying down. No. Mama whipped Massa's son, fled on a cow. Daddy said, next time you whip me, I'm going to put you in the ground. So now we got to live in the woods. And even the son is beating up Master's children. Hey, we always stood on business. Of course, we can only do so much. Try to do too much, and now the militia comes in and they hanging you up from a tree and stuff. But as you can see, slavery is way more nuanced than you could have ever imagined. Now, let me see if we have any more live callers before we wrap up this broadcast. I know we had someone backstage earlier. Are they still backstage? Yeah, Flight Chief. Flight Chief, let us know where you calling in from and what's on your mind. And y'all, make sure to check out nativeblackancestry.com. I'm telling you, this digital archive is a treasure trove. It's only $15 to become a member of the website. Best $15 you ever gonna spend. But Flight Chief, go ahead. Let us know what's on your mind and where you calling in from. Flight Chief going once. Flight Chief going twice. All right. Flight Chief was just waiting backstage to come up here and say absolutely nothing. Now let me get caught up with the chat. The TikTok chat been moving so fast. Let me see. Producer says, I'm at your website now on the landing page. Nice. Make sure to put in your email when that pop-up shows up for the ebook. For everybody that visits my website, there's going to be a pop-up that shows up after you've been on the website for like 30 seconds or so. And if you put in your email, you can get a free copy of my ebook, Reclassified: The Hidden History of Black Indians in the Southeast from Indian to Negro. And that ebook is jam-packed with a lot of historical references as well. But let me see what you guys are talking about. Y'all saying, wow. Lewis says, I found a manifest with the big Tribune owned by Franklin and Armfield, my 3 times great-grandfather. Nice. Sugar and Sovereign says, my goodness. Producer Fam Nice says, that's horrible. Facts. Tuqua says, common story. My great-great-grandmother got stolen, but my great-grandfather got her back. That's what's up. Black Mamba says, definitely the king of receipts. I appreciate it. Yo Swifty says, damn, hold on. Damn. Chat just moved on me, y'all. Yo Swifty says, now I see why grandma and granddad slept with a rifle under the bed. Damn. Yeah. That's also why we keep our money under the mattress, because of the Freedmen's Bank that defrauded our ancestors out of $1 to $2 trillion in generational wealth. Producer Fam Nice says, that's common for a lot of us. No exact birth date and age. Yeah. And guys, that's why they outlawed the slaves reading and writing, because if they can read and write, they can read the text and the census and know they're indigenous. Master said you come from Africa somewhere, but when I'm able to read, I can source documentation and learn, wait a minute. Nah, I was raised on this plantation since I was 3. This is all I know. But I was taken after a local Indian war and separated from my tribe. You see why they didn't want us reading and writing? They put all the shit in books. That's why it's so easy for me to show you the receipts. They put everything in text and literature. Why? Because they never thought we would even be able to read this shit one day. So, they really never thought that we would not only be able to read, but that we would also have artificial intelligence and be able to use it to source documentation from centuries ago. Everything's at the snap of our fingers. And if you use the tool correctly, you can get the results that you're looking for. Saturn says, I know that's right, mama, for real. She said, these black titties suckled you and you gonna beat me? J Bone says, what book is that, brother? That's not a book. Through my own research, I've come across these interviews. I've downloaded them to my digital archive on the website. That's not a book, but I am working on a book where I'm going to compile indigenous ex-slave interviews. Upper Echelon Native says, yeah, now these are the stories we need to read. Our ancestors weren't docile. Facts. And I just read like 2. There's a few more on the website there. Let me see. Last Soldier says, these people are evil as fuck. Yeah, facts. HED Mom says, damn shame. Black Mamba says, we've been fighters. Absolutely. That's right. Shout out to the ancestors. All praises to the Most High. Yep. Black Mamba says the website's definitely the best. Hey, I'm glad you think so. It's a labor of love. Upper Echelon Native says that's why they stopped teaching writing and resting in cursive too. All records are in cursive. Exactly. Guys, I'm a genealogist. I find so many of these records that I can't read because it's like this old cursive and shit. And I actually created an AI program that I uploaded to so it translates it. That's how you got to use AI as a tool. It's not a source, it's a tool. When y'all come across some of these old documents, these Freedman documents, these Freedmen's Bureau land contracts and stuff, and you can't read it because it's in some cursive chicken scratch, upload that to ChatGPT and say, translate this. Let's talk about it. But ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we're going to wrap up this broadcast. I'm going to play some music, pack a cone, and allow anybody who wants to call in with a buzzer beater. If anybody wants to call in before we wrap up this broadcast, now is the last call. But I'm going to listen to some music while I pack this cone. And guys, as always, I want to end this broadcast the same way I end most broadcasts. Let me know, how long have you been watching? Half an hour, 40 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, 2.5 hours? Let me know, did you learn something new? If so, what did you learn that was new? And if you think that there was a sensational moment, let me know what sensational or noteworthy moment you experienced tonight. Whether it was the brother calling in who sent me documents of his ancestor listed as a Negro Indian. Maybe it can be the Moorish pseudo dude that called in on some dumb shit. I mean, hey. Former Bloodline says, you a legend, fam. 10 minutes. Cool. Oh, also, anybody who's watching this on TikTok, you can actually go to my YouTube channel, Mike TV, and all of these live stream replays are on YouTube. Just type in Mike TV. I pop right up. I've got like 36,000 subscribers. It's this logo, white, black, and yellow. We're live right now, and you can watch a treasure trove. Guys, I've got an archive of videos on YouTube. I've got 847 videos on YouTube. Just waiting for you to binge. You truckers, hey, this is going to help you pass the time. Y'all be grinding at work, got the AirPods in, learn some of this indigenous knowledge while you're working at the 9 to 5. 847 videos. So if y'all tuning into the live stream and you like, damn, he dropping gems, I missed some of the stream, I want to catch up, go to YouTube, Mike TV. You can watch all the content. You see what y'all talking about. Black Mamba says 2 hours and always learn something new. Appreciate that. Yo Swifty says an hour. I screenshotted dozens of pictures, but wish they were larger. Hey, all you got to do is go to the website, drop the $15, become a member, and you can go to the digital archive and download all those documents I was showing. You can download them straight to your phone, straight to your computer. There's a share button. You can share them on social media and make it accessible. Coleman says, thanks, Mike. I enjoyed the discussion with you and the panel members. Nice. It wasn't too much of a smoke show tonight. A lot of the trolls were staying in the chat. They were afraid. HED Mom says, good night. I was first in this time. Thank you, Mike. I've learned so much watching here and on YouTube. Hey, nice. I appreciate it. That is what I'm here for. Now, let me see what I feel like listening to while I pack this cone. Lord knows I need a smoke break, y'all. Lord knows I need a smoke break. Oh, we got somebody coming in with the buzzer beater. Mars, let us know where you're calling in from and what's on your mind.
Yo, what's good, Mike? Man, we talked before. I'm calling in from Nevada, Southern Nevada.
Oh, yeah, I remember you. What's on your mind?
Tonight?
I was going pretty good.
What's on my nothing, just trying to find some more information. Sometimes I'll be hitting them brick walls, and why do we have a lot of our like my grandmother, it's a lot of them with the same last name. Like for instance, one of them his last name was Holloway, and it's like a lot of different Holloways, and I'm like, dang. But it was funny thing with her. They say
hold on.
they transport. Oh, sorry, my bad.
What territory are those ancestors that are Holloways in?
She was from Alabama. Then she eventually moved to Texas, to East Texas.
Interesting.
But then I seen one. She was born in 1835, but they transported her to Rio de Janeiro, which is Brazil, So when people think we got transported from Africa, no, that was just them getting transported around that area and all that.
So did you find any evidence that
just
those
to let people know
Holloway?
that.
Hold on, did
That's
you
what I seen
find?
on mine. I was pretty.
Hold on, time out. I think it's a little bit of a delay. Did you see any evidence of those Holloway ancestors being enslaved?
I think she was enslaved. Yeah, she was a prisoner of war, but then she ended up being free. And then I have another one on my other side. They went around the same year, but that's on my father's side. She was a free person of color. That was she was born in 18.
Yeah, no. There's definitely a rich legacy there.
And so I figured that was probably why we hit a brick wall.
I got you, and I'm gonna mute you real quick because there's a delay and a lot of background noise. But yeah, there's definitely a rich legacy there. The Holloways, especially in Alabama, I mean, that surname has deep roots. I mean, it's connected both to plantation owners and enslaved Native Black American families who carried the name after emancipation or manumission. So the Holloway surname actually appears throughout central and southern Alabama in 19th century records, especially in counties like Heavy Creek, Choctaw, and Chickasaw County. And it's really a significant surname in both the indigenous and the quote unquote African American paradigm, right? If we were to break this down further, of course, it has European origin. You know, the surname Holloway is English. It literally means one who lived by a hollow way or a sunken road. Many of the Holloways in colonial America actually arrived through Virginia, the Carolinas, and Georgia in the 16 and the 1700s before spreading into Alabama during the early 1800s, you know, around Indian removal. Again, the movement of the Holloways westward aligns with Indian removal and the cotton expansion, which means they often settled on or near former Creek and Choctaw territories. So your ancestors were most likely either Creek or Choctaw. When we talk about the plantation era during the 1820s and the 1860s, you know, you got multiple white Holloway families in Alabama that are appearing on slave schedules, tax records, census records. You've got notable Holloway slaveholders like John Holloway. He's listed with 15 enslaved people in Dallas County, Alabama in 1850. You've got William Holloway in Lowndes County, listed with 9 enslaved people in 1860. James Holloway, Marengo County, 5 enslaved people. Thomas Holloway, Wilcox County, 8 enslaved people. Mary Holloway, Entwega County, 3 enslaved people. And she was actually a widowed estate holder. Oftentimes, widows or women whose fathers had slaves, they'll inherit slaves.
That's funny you said that. That was her name, Mary Holloway.
See, we're
And
getting somewhere.
and on her census record it said Negro, then they transferred over to mulatto, and then there's another record that has the same exact name, but then it says white. So then I got confused. Then another one I'm stuck on is Reed, Henry Reed, and Nancy Reed. Then I found out Henry Reed's son was General Reed, and he was a Choctaw freedman general of the Choctaws. So I was like, whoa, I didn't know that. So
yeah, and all those counties I just listed fall within the Black Belt region. You know, that's the fertile soil where the Creek, the Choctaw, and the Alabama tribes were before the Indian removal. So, you know, these Holloway families actually acquired land through federal land patents issued after the 1830s Indian Removal Act. But yeah, you know, if I'm able to drop some gems like that willy-nilly, again, I say, imagine what kind of gems I'll drop on you during a one-on-one personalized genealogy consultation. Let's talk about it. But go ahead, brother. You have the floor.
yeah, man. Thank you for that, because like I'm really stuck on those two surnames. Like I can't get past they found name their father, their mother and father. So like Henry Reed, I can't find his. Nancy Reed, I know that's not her last name, but that was his. And then you got Mary Holloway, married to what's his my grandfather's name was Alfred Arnold Atkins, married to Mary Holloway. Yeah, so that line, I know that Atkins was Creeks too, so I'm like, oh yeah, not just keep hitting these brick walls.
Hey brother, if you're hitting brick walls, you already know what to do. Check out the website.
Yeah, and everybody needs to go on that website before you do the consultation too, and get that free ebook, man. I got one too. It's pretty dope.
I appreciate that. Honestly, I made the ebook a few months back, And I do so much research. I low key, high key forgot what I even have in that book. I mean, I know I dropped some gems. I know it was thorough, but like I'll have to go through and like read it myself. And when I read it, it'll be like reading it for the first time because like you guys have no idea how much information I have to constantly filter and absorb on a daily basis. Like it's ridiculous. And then how many people call in and talk to me? I mean, it's a lot to process. Matter of fact, that's what. I'll do it right now. Matter of fact, I'll do it live. Hold on. Let me pull up that ebook. I swear to God, I do not remember what's in that ebook. I do not remember at all. I created the ebook like 4 months ago, I think. I've got a copy of it saved on my Google Drive, though. Hold on a second. I'm gonna bring this up with you guys, so you guys can also have a little sneak peek. But
Mike, you're gonna be surprised what you put in there. It's a lot of good information you put in there. It's long. I didn't get to finish all of it, but it's a lot. I skimmed through it good. It's a lot in there.
Y'all don't understand. I have to process so much information. I do so many live broadcasts. I'll be having a smoke, having a break, and on my breaks, sometimes I'll watch my own shows because I don't even remember what I say up here. Like this is all freestyle off the top of my. I'd be watching my own replays and watching the shit like it's for the first time, and I'm like, oh damn, I was going off on it. Like, oh damn, I was cooking there. Like, you don't understand. It's crazy, y'all. It's crazy. I process so much information on the daily. But let me see about this ebook. Yeah, here we go. Let's take a look at this together, guys. I'm about to read through this like I'm not the one who wrote it. Like, bro, let me see. Reclassified: The Hidden History of Black Indians in the Southeast from Indian to Negro. How do I open? Oh, I open it up with the El Negro Olmec head statue. Okay, we open it up strong, Mike. All right. And actually, I want to be able to zoom in on this. Is it going to let me zoom? I don't see a zoom option. Let me open it in Google Docs. Maybe that'll help. Oh, no, here's a zoom. Here we go. So we open it up strong with the Olmec El Negro statue looking like Wesley Snipes with the M-shaped hairline, prominent in our community. For centuries, the true origins of many Black Americans have been buried under colonial deception, systematic erasure, and weaponized reclassification. This book uncovers a story that was never meant to be told, a story of nations dismantled not just through warfare, but through paperwork, policy, and pedagogy. What if your ancestors weren't African slaves, but indigenous Americans renamed and enslaved on their own land? We journey through key truths that expose how the Southeastern tribes, especially the darker-skinned nations, were renamed, reclassified, and removed from the historical record. But this isn't just a history book, it's a tool of liberation. The truth they saw and then erased. Cinnamon-skinned natives in 1492. Christopher Columbus describes the indigenous people of the Caribbean as having cinnamon-colored skin and features resembling Ethiopians. He never once stated that they were African. His comparisons shocked European audiences because they contradicted their assumption that Indians were light-skinned and Asiatic. This early testimony is crucial. It proves that Blackness was native to the Americas before African slave ships ever arrived. And then we've got this image of a West Indian scene by Agostino Brunius from 1795. Cabeza de Vaca saw free dark natives. Shipwrecked in 1528, Spanish explorer Cabeza de Vaca lived amongst tribes along the Gulf Coast. His journal detailed encounters with dark-skinned native peoples who lived in complex societies, had their own languages, and were not enslaved. He never associated them with Africa. Instead, he honored their sovereignty. His writings challenged the dominant slave narrative by revealing a free, dark indigenous population in early America. And here's another artist rendition. Samuel Davies, 1758 testimony. A Presbyterian minister in Virginia, Reverend Davies noted that certain native congregants were dark, not from mixture with Negroes, but by nature. This single line provides key evidence that dark skin was indigenous to native communities. His statement also contradicts modern assumptions that all dark-skinned people in the South were of African origins. Spanish records called them negros indios. The Spanish used the term negro indio to classify Native Americans with dark skin. Not because they were African, but because their phenotype resembled Africans. These records, found in colonial era documents from Mexico, Florida, and the Caribbean, show a clear effort to racialize indigenous people based on appearance rather than culture or ancestry. And then we just keep on going with the receipts and keep on going with the receipts and just keep on going with the receipts and just keep on going with the receipts. And we keep on going with the receipts. Hold on, we ain't going to stop with the receipts. Oh, Lord, oh, Lord. How many pages was this? I don't even remember how many pages this was. We taking it all the way
I told you, Mike.
Oh, damn, this is
Told you got a lot of information in there. And this is
25
free, y'all.
pages.
This is a free ebook.
Hey,
A free ebook with all that stuff to read.
hey.
You can't
shit.
beat that. Nobody else giving out these gems like that for free. Like when I seen them, I'm like, oh yeah. That's why every time I see you on Mike, you get on live, like, I gotta get on here. I gotta get on here. Cause he cool peoples. Just don't be talking that that dumb stuff. Don't, you gotta come with some type of knowledge. And you gotta come with some type of knowledge. And I didn't get to hear that guy that you guys had on before. And if you say the Moors come from America, that don't make sense, bro. That's maybe if you talk about the MUURS, that's still was different.
He said some real dumb shit. First, he said Moors don't come from Africa. Then he said that Africans were never sent to America as slaves, that they were pearl divers that were shipwrecked.
What the hell is? Are you talking about the story when we jumped off and they didn't want to be in bondage?
No. Pearl divers.
That's a pearl diver.
Yeah, right. That's
a pearl diver. Like, you ain't finna take me over there. I'm good.
He was up here not making no damn sense. He said that Africa doesn't mean Africa. It means a land with no treaties.
That's not even what. Lord, he didn't even research that either.
Yeah.
Like, because I used to think, I was like, oh, we come. They said we was from Africa, so I dive into the Moors because they didn't want to talk about how the strong the Africans was with their kingdoms they had. So I dived into it, but I didn't feel it in my spirit. And then I started diving back into who I am of America. I was like, something ain't right. Why we always getting messed with over here so much? And everybody else is coming over here, taking our land. They got the Chinese community, Chinatown, Koreatown. Where's our town at?
The whole Americas is our town, and we've been occupied since 1492.
That's 100% correct. But you got these fools that don't want to believe that, and then we still can't even build a miniature community that we have. And then when we do, it's going to be, we actually have plenty of times, and they destroyed it. So I can't even say that.
They destroyed it. They flooded it. They make a dam. They turn it into a lake. They make a freeway that runs through it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Take our ideas, like the guy that invented the first electric car in 1898. Then they made the YT guy say, they gave him full credit, say, oh no, he just came up with some of the ideas and helped out. He didn't invent the technology. Yes, he did. Y'all didn't invent nothing. The first woman to come create GPS was a melanated woman.
Shit, it's always been us. Hey, there was a black man called Charles Frederick Page. He was the first person to create a flying machine before the Wright brothers. But guess what? He went to ship his flying machine through the train to a fair to show it off, and it went missing. He was born and he was born in slavery. He was born in slavery in 1864. He taught himself how to read, how to write. He worked as a timber contractor and a cabinet maker. And he designed a twin balloon airship lighter than an aircraft. He even got a patent for it. If you guys want to look up his patent, it's US 817442A. On April 24th, 1903, he got this patent for his design of a double balloon system with a rudder, a gas motor, etc. His patent was granted on April 10th, 1906, just ahead of the Wright brothers' patent on their airplane in May 22nd, 1906. He built a full-scale model which was to be exhibited at the 1904 Louisiana Purchase Exposition, but the craft was reportedly stolen in transit and never recovered. It's important to note, though, his machine was an airship. It was lighter than air. It wasn't powered heavier than air, like the airplane that the Wright Flyer created. But either way, we've got a man born into slavery, teaches himself to read and write, becomes a cabinet maker, designs a flying machine, gets a patent on it a month before the Wright brothers, But in school, I remember vividly them teaching us about the Wright brothers, and they never taught us about Charles Frederick Page of Pineville.
And here's another thing that we did so amazing when they supposedly had us on this land, as they took our land and had us working for them, I guess. But anyways, they was picking cotton. They said, well, we ain't cleaning this cotton by hand. I'm about to make a cleaning machine for this. And then we invented that.
Yep.
The cotton cleaning
the cotton
machine.
gin, the all of it. Yeah. It's always been us.
And it's ridiculous when I get on these other people's lives.
That's literally
hold
up. But that's literally what we do. We create processes and systems and refine them. Y'all do the same shit at work. Y'all will learn that there's some system at work, and you'll be like, why do these motherfuckers at work, my bosses who make more than me, why do they have this system that's not efficient? And we be giving the workplace suggestions and shit and fixing the system and not even getting promoted, not even getting a bonus or nothing. I mean, it's just in us to create processes and systems.
Facts. Like if you see that movie Jumanji, remember when he created the tennis shoe? The little boy put that in the machine by accident. Yeah, the first tennis shoe, that's where it starts. I've been diving this in since I was a little kid. So I know so much about us, and my dad been learning how to use YouTube. He born in 1949, so that's what connects me to the ancient ancestors.
That's what's up.
I ain't got to go back too far to get back to the 1800s and find out that we was free. Talking about free mulattoes and Negroes and stuff.
So somebody says Eli Whitney. Yeah, technically on paper they say Eli Whitney created the cotton gin, but come on, we know that so many of these European inventions, it's our indigenous inventions that they just take and patent. And come on. Hold on. I'm gonna do some quick digging. I'm gonna do some quick research and see if there's any evidence of indigenous black person or a slave pioneering that before Eli Whitney. Hold on a second. Let me see. We do some quick research here on the fly. Doing some quick research on the fly. Okay, here we go. Now we're getting somewhere. Okay. All right, I got it. So no, Eli Whitney can take credit for the cotton gin. Well, we do have those. We have George Washington Carver. He was an American agricultural scientist. He developed crop rotation methods, soil improvement techniques, and alternative crops such as peanuts, sweet potatoes to move farms away from cotton monoculture because, they were destroying the land and creating dust bowls and stuff because they kept over cultivating cotton instead of rotating the crops like indigenous tribes always did. You have the Coleman Manufacturing Company, founded in 1897 in North Carolina. This was a significant Black-owned textile manufacturing. This was directly tied to cotton processing and fabric, allowing indigenous Black Americans access to industrial roles in the cotton/textile chain. Okay. So yeah, we're definitely pioneers when it comes to agriculture, cotton production, cultivation, but when it comes to actual patent records, Eli Whitney holds the patent on the cotton gin. Absolutely.
I think the problem with us was we was trying to just make things for everybody, and then they always make that joke saying we invented this and they created this bill, they created that, you know what I'm saying? We created the electricity and then they created the electric bill.
Exactly.
Your traffic light was invented by a Black man, so everything that we see today was mainly invented by us. Everything else that they say it wasn't, they probably stole the idea and took their idea.
Absolutely. Well, hey, brother, go ahead and give us some closing remarks, and then I'm gonna wrap up this broadcast.
Well, everybody, I suggest everybody just do your research and stay positive and don't let nobody take your energy. At the end of the day, we all got to find the truth about our own lineage and know where we all come from. Because at the end of the day, we got to just find out who we are and just stay positive, you guys. Have a blessed one.
Hey, till next time, brother. Thanks for calling in. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm going to pack this cone while I see if we have any more callers that want to call in with a buzzer beater. The folks on YouTube say they've been tuning in for a while. Infamous Fader been here for 2 hours. Shout out to Infamous Fader. Drop some gems on us. You're going to have to call in again in the future, brother. GJ been here for 66 minutes. Infamous Fader said, I learned the Moors are absolutely clueless on their origins. Yeah, that part. He said, the Moor guy sounds like a dumb, street smart nigga. Yeah. Most of them were, yeah. A lot of them, they were locked up, did a bid in prison. They learned about some Moorish, Muslim, Hebrew shit. And yeah. Tuqua says, I don't count the time, but at least 2 hours. Black Mamba says, good night. Well, hey, good night. But before we wrap up, I got to pack me a cone, y'all. I got to pack me a cone. Let's talk about it.
Break it, they ain't let us in. We pass on the settlements. This path I don't recommend. We pass what they expected, man. I go where they never can. I float, I don't never land. When it's dark, you don't know where you go. Need a light bearer to lead you home. I go where they never can. I float, I don't never land. When it's dark, you don't know where you go. Need a light bearer to lead you home. Light 'em up, beat me up. The only GOAT, the genius one. They switching sides, I seen it coming. The plot twist, a convenient one. Look, nobody finna extort me, even when they record me. I'ma keep it more G. Hand me a drink before I get more deep. She hates sports unless she watch it from the floor seats. I hate that God didn't make a couple more of me. And all my haters in the chords at the coordinate. They imitate the sound, call it forgery. What we doing is more importantly. Look where we made it to. Made love that's unmakeable, bonds that's unbreakable. Broke rules and bent corners and hopes of breaking through. Basically went out my way to make a way for you. Basically we finna take them high places through it. Way improved it like a beta, we gon' stay improving. This the light that's gonna illuminate the way we move it. Trust in me, we going God mode, the theory's proven. Light 'em up, beat me up, the only GOAT, the genius one. They switching sides, I seen it coming. The plot twist, a convenient one.
I walk up to the preacher man just to pick your love hand and give to you. I give to you. And I walk up to the preacher man just to pick your love hand and give to you. I give to you. And I walk up to the preacher man just to pick your love hand and give to you. I give to you. I walk up to the preacher man just to pick your love hand and give to you. I give to you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that's all I have for you this evening. Sugar, thank you for the gifts. Shout out to everybody who's been sending gifts. I know I'm really bad at acknowledging the TikTok gifts, but everybody who sends gifts on TikTok, I really appreciate you all. You know that. Thank you guys for showing up and showing out. Make sure to check out the website, nativeblackancestry.com, and I will see y'all later.
They don't don't want you to remember this. You not no slave, you indigenous. Fuck how they painted them Indians. You went to war with the French and the British, man. Quite frankly, you was kings, Merovingians. They took the women and men, made them prisoners, raised up the children to worship their images, set up a lab to the genes and they mixed them, and this shit get way deeper than your pigment.